Welcome to the channel if you've never been here before. This is Movie Readings, where I take entire Hollywood scripts and read them from start to finish, right here on YouTube. Sometimes these take hours to make, so please consider subscribing, and make sure to leave a comment with what you would like the next movie reading to be. Enjoy Inception from 2010. Dawn, crashing surf. The waves toss a bearded man onto wet sand. He lies there. A child's shout makes him lift his head to see a little blond boy crouching back towards us, watching the tide eat a sandcastle. A little blonde girl joins the boy. The bearded man tries to call them, but they run off, faces unseen. He collapses. The barrel of a rifle rolls the bearded man onto his back. A Japanese security guard looks down at him, then calls up the beach to a colleague leaning against a jeep. Behind them is a cliff, and on top of that, a Japanese castle. Inside an elegant dining room, later. The security guard waits as an attendant speaks to an elderly Japanese man sitting at a dining table, back to us. In Japanese, "He was delirious, but he asked for you by name, and," to the security guard, "show him. He was carrying nothing but this." He puts a handgun on the table. The elderly man keeps eating. "And this." The security guard places a small pewter cone alongside the gun. The elderly man stops eating, picks up the cone. "Bring him here, and some food." The elderly man watches the bearded man wolf down his food. He slides the handgun down the table towards him. "Are you here to kill me?" The bearded man glances up at him, then back to his food. The elderly Japanese man picks up the cone between thumb and forefinger. "I know what this is." He spins it on a table. It circles gracefully across the polished ebony, a spinning top. "I've seen one before, many, many years ago." The elderly Japanese man stares at the top, mesmerized. "It belonged to a man I met in a half-remembered dream." Move in on the gracefully spinning top. "A man possessed of some radical notions." The elderly Japanese man stares, remembering. A voiceover. "What is the most resilient parasite?" In the same elegant dining room years earlier, the speaker, Cobb, is 35, handsome and tailored. A young Japanese man, Sato, eats as he listens. A bacteria? A virus? Cobb gestures at their feast with his wineglass. An intestinal worm? Sato's fork pauses mid-air. Cobb grins. A third man is at the table, Arthur. He jumps in to save the pitch. "What Mr. Cobb is trying to say," an idea. Sato looks at Cobb, curious. Resilient? Highly contagious? Once an idea has taken hold in the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. A person can cover it up, ignore it, but it stays there. But surely to forget? Information, yes, but an idea, fully formed, understood, that sticks. He taps his forehead. In there, somewhere. For someone like you to steal. Yes, in the dream state, conscious defenses are lowered, and your thoughts become vulnerable to theft. It's called extraction. But, Mr. Sato, we can treat your subconscious to defend itself from even the most skilled extractor. How can you do that? Because I am the most skilled extractor. I know how to search your mind and find your secrets. I know the tricks, and I can teach them to your subconscious, so that even when you're asleep, your guard is never down. Cobb leans forward, holding Sato's gaze. But if I'm going to help you, you have to be completely open to me. I'll need to know my way around your thoughts better than your wife, your analyst, anyone. He gestures around. If this is a dream and you've got a safe full of secrets, I need to know what's in that safe. For this to work, you have to let me in. Sato gives this a flicker of a smile. He rises. A bodyguard opens double doors, which give onto a lavish party. Gentlemen, enjoy your evening, as I consider your proposal. They watch Sato leave. Arthur turns to Cobb, worried. He knows. Cobb motions silence. A tremor starts. They steady their glasses. Cobb glances at his watch. The second hand is frozen. What's going on up there? And we cut to a filthy bathroom. It feels like a different time. Cobb asleep, sitting in a chair at the end of a steaming bath. The chair is up on a cabinet, the bottom of the legs level with the rim of the tub. A sweating man in his 40s watches Cobb. This is Nash. A distant explosion rumbles through the room. Nash moves to the window, parts the curtains, and outside, a chaotic developing world city. The street is filled with rioters, smashing and burning. Nash checks Cobb's left wrist. Above his watch, tape holds 2 thin yellow tubes in place. Nash looks at Cobb's watch. The second hand crawls unnaturally slowly. Nash follows the tubes to a silver briefcase at Arthur's feet. Arthur is asleep in an armchair. Tubes connect the briefcase to Arthur's wrist. Nash follows another set of tubes from the briefcase to where they pass under the door to the bedroom. Through the crack of the door, Nash sees Sato asleep on the bed, tubes running to his wrist. Boom! A closer explosion. And we cut to a bullet train compartment. Again, it feels like a different time. Nash is asleep, head rocking against the window as the train bumps over a rough piece of track. A Japanese man, Todashi, 18, watches Nash nervously. He checks Nash's wrist. 2 yellow tubes connect Nash with 3 other sleeping men in the compartment, Cobb, Arthur, and Sato. Todashi checks his watch. The second hand ticks in real time. Another train passes in the opposite direction. With a mighty whoomp, Todashi's eyes fly to Nash's sleeping face. Nash jerks with the movement of the train, and we cut back to the filthy bathroom. Another explosion. Nash checks the sleeping Cobb, and we cut to the rooftop terraces of the Japanese castle. A low tremor rumbles through the castle. Cobb and Arthur steady themselves against the wooden rail. Several tiles and pieces of masonry fall. Below them, a black sea churns. Other guests wander the massive terraces. Sato knows. He's playing with us. I can get it here. The information is in the safe. He looked right at it when I mentioned secrets. Arthur nods, then spots someone over Cobb's shoulder. What's she doing here, Cobb? Cobb turns to see a beautiful woman, elegantly dressed, staring out at the sea. This is Mal. Cobb watches her. You just get to your room. I'll take care of the rest. See that you do. We're here to work. Arthur brushes past Mal, shaking his head. She nears Cobb, looks out at the drop. The wind whips her hair. If I jump, would I survive? With a clean dive, perhaps. Mal, why are you here? She turns to look at him, amused. I thought you might be missing me. She smiles. He leans in, mesmerized. I am, but I can't trust you anymore. She stares up at him, inviting. So what? Mal sips champagne as she studies a painting by Francis Bacon. Looks like Arthur's taste. Cobb is looking down the window at the guards patrolling the castle at ground level. Actually, Mr. Sato is partial to post-war British painters. He turns to Mal, donning a pair of black leather gloves. Would you sit down? Mal lowers herself gracefully into a leather wingback chair. Cobb approaches, pulls out a length of black rope, and kneels at Mal's feet. She looks down at him. Tell me. Cobb ties the rope around the chair legs. Do the children miss me? Cobb pauses. He lets his gloved fingers lightly touch Mal's ankle. He looks up at her. You can't imagine. Mal looks away, uncomfortable. Cobb gets to his feet, letting out the rope as he moves back to the window. What are you doing? Cobb tosses the rope out. Getting some air. He tugs on the rope, testing. The weight of the chair, with Mal on it, holds. Stay seated, please. And with that, he jumps. Mal considers the open window. Cobb rappels down the wall, darting past windows. He stops at a particular one. He gets out a glass cutter. But suddenly he starts dropping. The empty chair slides across the floor and wedges under the window. Cobb jolts to a stop 15 feet lower. He looks up at the bedroom window, shakes his head, and starts climbing back down. Cobb drops silently from the window into the darkened kitchen. He pulls a pistol from his belt, screwing a silencer onto the barrel, as he glides across the room. Cobb slips through the shadows towards a guard stationed at the head of a grand staircase. The guard hears something, turns, peers into the shadows. Cobb flashes out of the shadows, silenced pistol up, aiming. Psst! Headshot. The guard starts to drop, but Cobb is already there to catch him, sliding on his knees and lowering the guard silently to the floor. Cobb moves to a painting. With practiced hands, he removes it from the wall, revealing a safe. Cobb spins the dial, pulls it open, and grabs an envelope from within. Stuffs it into his waistband, where there is already an identical envelope. The lights come on. Cobb freezes. Turn around. Cobb turns. At the far end of the room, Sato. Next to him is Mal, gun in hand. She smiles at Cobb. The gun, dumb. Cobb doesn't move. Mal motions outside. 2 guards drag Arthur into the room. Mal puts the gun to his head. Please? Cobb slowly places his gun at the end of the long table, then slides it along the polished ebony. It comes to rest halfway down the length of the table. Now the envelope, Mr. Cobb. Cobb reaches into his waistband, removes one of the envelopes, and slides it along the table. He steps back, hands raised. Did she tell you, or have you known all along, that you're here to steal from me, or that we are actually asleep? Arthur gives Cobb an I told you so look. I want to know who your employer is. Mal cocks the gun at Arthur's temple. No point threatening him in a dream. That depends on what you're threatening. Killing him would just wake him up. But pain is in the mind. Mal lowers the gun and shoots Arthur in the leg. Arthur drops, screaming. Mal looks at Cobb, cold. And judging by the decor, we're in your mind, aren't we, Arthur? Cobb watches Arthur's pain. Mal aims at Arthur's other leg. Cobb springs for the table, skidding along its polished surface. He grabs the gun and shoots Arthur between the eyes. Arthur drops, and the room starts to shudder in a massive earthquake. Cobb springs for the door. Arthur's eyes stare at the ceiling. Dead. And we cut to the filthy bathroom. Arthur's eyes open, and he wakes in the armchair. He grabs at the tubes at his wrist, yanking them free. What are you doing? It's too soon! Fluid spurts from the tubes as Arthur struggles with the silver case on the bathroom floor. I know! We have to reconnect the loop before they wake up! Arthur grabs the case and pushes through the door to the bedroom, following the tube to where they meet Sato's wrist. Sato lies on the bed asleep. Sato stirs, and we cut back to the Japanese castle. Cobb lurches toward the stairs as all around him the building bucks and heaves. Sato and the guards panic. Mal walks calmly through the destruction, picks up the envelope, and turns to Sato. He was very close, very close. Cobb runs up the stairs, pulling out the second envelope. Sato rips open the envelope, pulls out sheets of paper. He looks at Mal, panicked. He turns to the guards. "Stop him!" Mal, confused, looks at the sheets of paper. They are blank. Mal smiles, amused. As Cobb runs up the stairs, he reads the typewritten sheets from his envelope. Back in the dilapidated hotel room, Arthur opens the silver case, a complex mechanism of tubes, syringes, dosage controllers. Arthur's hands fly across the machine's controls as he glances at Sato's stirring face. "I'm not gonna make it! Wake Cobb!" Nash turns to Cobb, raises his hand, and smacks him across the face. On the grand staircase of the castle, Cobb is smashed sideways off his feet. The ceiling cracks above Sato. He looks up as a ton of stone floods down, crushing him. Sato's eyes flicker open. Nash smacks Cobb again. "He won't wake!" Arthur, who is crouched by Sato, connects the second tube. "Dunk him!" A click. Arthur looks up to find Sato with a gun to his head and a finger to his lips, gesturing silence. Nash puts his hand on Cobb's forehead and pushes him backwards, as Cobb starts to fall backwards in the chair. We are in slow motion, and Cobb at full speed picks himself up, scrambling to read the last sheet of paper. He stares at it, puzzled. Bullets hit around him as the guards race up the stairs. Cobb in slow motion in the filthy bathroom hits the water, head thrashing as he goes under. Cobb glances up from the paper as water explodes in through all the windows, flooding the entire hall. Cobb is swamped by the water, spun in all directions at once. He pulls deeper, or for the surface, we can't tell. He breaks the surface, gasping for air in the bathtub. Cobb is now awake, gulping for air and getting his bearings. Sato smashes into the room, knocking Nash down. Cobb launches himself out of the tub, flying dripping wet across the room to slam Sato against the door. The gun drops, and Cobb's fist connects with Sato's jaw. The struggle is now over. Cobb, wet but composed, sits, turning Sato's gun in his hand. Nash holds Sato's arm behind him. Outside, the sounds of rioting grow louder. "You came prepared." "I bring the gun because not even my head of security knows this apartment." "How did you find it?" Arthur, at the window, looks out at the worsening violence. Hard for a man in your position to keep a love nest totally secret, particularly when there's a married woman involved. She would never. And yet here we are. Sato is silent, with a dilemma. "You got what you came for." "Not quite. The key piece of information wasn't there, was it, Mr. Sato?" Arthur looks over at Cobb, worried. "They're getting closer, Cobb." Inside the bullet train, Todashi slips a pair of headphones over Nash's ears, then pulls out an MP3 player. We cut to the dilapidated hotel room, where Sato's eyes are on the floor. "You held something back because you knew what we were up to." Cobb uses the barrel of the gun to raise Sato's chin. "So why let us in at all?" Sato smiles, defiant. Violent noises echo up the stairway. "An audition." "Audition for what?" "It doesn't matter. You failed. I extracted all the information you had in there. But your deception was readily apparent." Back in the bullet train, Todashi opens the silver briefcase, revealing the complex mechanism of syringes and controllers. 4 controllers display countdowns. Todashi waits for the first countdown to hit 30, then hits play on the MP3 player. He watches Nash's sleeping face as he raises the volume. Through Nash's headphones, the opening bars of Edith Piaf's "Non, je ne regrette rien," and we cut to, in the distant background of the hotel room, a strange, massive, low-end musical start, sounding like distant horns. "So leave me and go." You know the corporation who hired us won't accept failure. We won't last 2 days. The distant, slowed-down music is becoming louder, as are the shouts coming from the stairs. Arthur looks at his watch. Its slow second ticking marks time with the massive music. Come on, Cobb. So now I have to do this the old-fashioned way. Cobb grabs Sato and puts his head to the floor, gun pressed into his cheek. Sato looks into Cobb's eyes. He sees he will pull the trigger. Sato blinks and looks away in shame. When he notices something and starts laughing. I've always hated this carpet. Cobb's eyes flick to the carpet and back. It's stained and frayed in such distinctive ways. Cobb looks up at Nash, who shrugs, at a loss, but very definitely made of wool. Right now I'm lying on polyester. Cobb glares at Nash. On the bullet train, Todashi watches the first of the countdowns hit 0. He looks up at Arthur stirring. Sato turns from the carpet to look up at Cobb. Which means I'm not lying on my carpet in my apartment. You've lived up to your reputation, Mr. Cobb. I'm still dreaming. Cobb looks over to Arthur, but Arthur has vanished. We cut to the bullet train where Arthur's eyes flick open, awake. He rips at his tubes. How did it go? Not good. Arthur checks the remaining 3 countdowns. As Sato gets to his feet, looking admiringly at Cobb. A dream within a dream. I'm impressed. Cobb lowers the gun, defeated. He glances at his watch. The music reverberates. The rioters bang on the door, and Arthur retracts the tubes into the case as he watches the next countdown hit 0. Another bang on the door. Sato, confident now, approaches Cobb. Nash is behind Sato. But in my dream, we really ought to be playing by my rules. Ah, yes, but you see, Mr. Sato. Sato turns to Nash. We're not in your dream. Sato turns back to Cobb, but Cobb has vanished. We're in mine. Sato spins back to Nash. The door smashes off its hinges as rioters pour into the room, swarming over Nash. But Nash is gone. The music dies. Sato and the rioters stand there in the silence, the light dwindling. Nash's eyes are open. He's awake, on the bullet train. Asshole! Nash blinks. Arthur is in his face, furious. How could you get the carpet wrong? It wasn't my fault. You're the architect. I didn't know he was going to rub his damn cheek on it. Cobb pulls Arthur away from Nash. Let's go. And you? What the hell was all that? I had it under control. I'd hate to see you out of control. There's no time for this. I'm getting off at Kyoto. Why? He's not going to search every compartment. I can't stand trains. Arthur moves to the briefcase and turns a dial. I can keep him under for 1 minute. Arthur hits a button. A plunger depresses. Cobb rips the tape off of Sato's wrist and rolls up his tubes. Arthur slams the silver case shut. Todashi pulls open the door. Every man for himself. Arthur and Nash exit, heading in different directions down the corridor. Cobb hands Todashi a thick roll of cash and looks at Sato, who stirs. Cobb moves off. In the Japanese countryside, the bullet train speeds through the lush landscape. Sato wakes gently, looks around the compartment. Empty, but for Todashi, reading a comic. Sato looks down at his wrist. He sees a small mark. He rubs it and smiles. In Tokyo, moving over the vast city towards a high-rise, a helicopter thumps into frame, heading for a pad on the roof. Cobb sits, waiting, checks his watch, restless. He pulls a handgun, checks that it is loaded. He places it on the table in front of him. He pulls out a pewter spinning top, spinning it on the table. He intently studies the top's spin. As he stares, the sound of the freight train builds and builds. The top wobbles and tips onto its side. The sound of the train stops. The phone rings and Cobb grabs it. "Hi, Daddy. Hi." "Hey, guys. How are you?" "Good. Okay, I guess." Cobb closes his eyes, trying to picture his children. We insert Cobb's memory. A little blond boy of 3, back towards us, crouches in a garden, looking at something in the grass. "Who's just okay? Was that James?" "Yeah. When are you coming home?" "I can't. Not for a while." We insert a cut of a blonde little girl, 5, also face unseen, joins James crouching beside him. "Why?" "Well, James, like I've told you, I'm away because I'm working." "Grandma says you're never coming back." Cobb pauses and takes a breath. James and Philippa, faces unseen, lift their head from the grass, responding to someone's call. They run away from us across the garden. "Philippa, can you ask Grandma to pick up the phone?" "She's shaking her head." Cobb tenses, as if about to smash the phone. "Well, we'll just have to hope that Grandma's wrong about that, won't we?" "Daddy?" "Yes?" "Is Mommy with you?" Cobb looks like he just got punched. Cobb's memory of Mal, wind blowing her hair, smiling calmly. No, we talked about this, James. Mommy is gone." "Where?" "Time to go, kids. Say bye-bye." "I'll give some presents to Grandpa, okay? Just be good for—" Cobb stares at the dead phone, then downs his drink. A knock comes at the door. Cobb grabs the top, the gun, and moves to the door and cracks it. "Our ride is on the roof." Cobb nods, moves to pick up his bag. Arthur watches. "Cobb, are you okay?" Cobb looks up. "Yeah, why?" "Down in the dream, Mal showing up like that." "Yeah, I'm sorry about your leg." "It's getting worse, isn't it?" "One apology is all you're getting, Arthur. Now where's Nash?" "He hasn't shown. Do you want to wait?" Cobb shakes his head. "We were supposed to deliver Sato's expansion plans to Cobalt Engineering 2 hours ago. By now they know we failed. Time to disappear." "Where will you go?" "Buenos Aires. I can lie low there. Maybe sniff out a job when things quiet down. You?" "Stateside." "Of course. Send my regards." Arthur looks at Cobb and nods, sympathetic. The helicopter sits, rotors spinning, on the rooftop helipad. As Cobb and Arthur reach the door, it slides open. Cobb steps up into the leather-padded interior. He freezes. Nash, beaten bloody, sits on the far side, slumped against the wine. Beside him is Sato. He nods politely at Cobb. "He sold you out, thought to come to me and bargain for his life." Sato's bodyguard offers Cobb a gun. "So I offer you the satisfaction." "That's not how I deal with things." "Would you work with him again?" Cobb shakes his head. Sato's bodyguards pull Nash from the chopper. Sato motions Cobb and Arthur to sit. The chopper rises. Cobb watches Nash dragged across the helipad. "What will you do with him?" "Nothing, but I can't speak for your friends from Cobalt Engineering." Sato looks out at the city slipping by. "What do you want from us?" "Inception." Arthur raises his eyebrows. Cobb is poker-faced. "Is it possible?" "Of course not." "If you can steal an idea from someone's mind, why can't you plant one there instead?" "Okay, here's planting an idea. I say to you, don't think about elephants." Sato nods. "What are you thinking about?" "Elephants." "Right, but it's not your idea, because you know I gave it to you." "You could plant it subconsciously." "The subject's mind can always trace back the genesis of the idea. True inspiration is impossible to fake." "No, it isn't." "Can you do it?" "I won't do it." In exchange, I'll give you the information you were paid to steal. Are you giving me a choice? Because I can find my own way to square things with Cobalt. Then you do have a choice, and I choose to leave. The helicopter sets down next to a private jet. Sato indicates a plane. Tell the crew where you want to go. They'll file the plan en route. Cobb and Arthur look at each other. Then they move for the door. Mr. Cobb, there is one other thing I could offer you. Cobb stops. How would you like to go home? To America? To your children? Cobb turns back to Sato. You can't fix that. Nobody could. Just like Inception. Cobb considers this. Arthur touches his arm. Cobb, come on. How complex is the idea? Simple enough. No idea is simple when you have to plant it in someone else's mind. My main competitor is an old man in poor health. His son will soon inherit control of the corporation. I need him to decide to break up his father's empire, against his own self-interest. Cobb, we should walk away from this. If I were to do it, if I could do it, how do I know you can deliver? You don't, but I can. So do you want to take a leap of faith, or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone? Cobb looks at Sato and barely nods. Assemble your team, Mr. Cobb, and choose your people more wisely. In the private jet later, Cobb reclines his seat. Arthur picks out a salad, angry. I know how much you want to go home. No, you don't. But this can't be done. It can. You just have to go deep enough. You don't know that. I've done it before. Arthur is taken aback. Cobb turns to the window. Did it work? Yes. Who did you do it to? Cobb looks at Arthur. Closed. Arthur shrugs. So why are we headed to Paris? We're going to need a new architect. Cobb, carrying a shopping bag, looks into a lecture hall at the School of Architecture. No students, just a rumpled professor, hunched over paperwork. You never did like your office. Professor Miles looks up, squinting. He recognizes Cobb. No space to think in that broom cupboard. Cobb steps down past the empty wooden rows. Is it safe for you to be here? Extradition between France and the U.S. is a bureaucratic nightmare. I think they'd find a way to make it work in your case. Cobb hands Miles the shopping bag. Can you take these back for the kids? It'll take more than the occasional stuffed animal to convince those children they still have a father. I know. I thought maybe you could talk to Marie about bringing them on vacation, somewhere I could meet them. Why would she listen to me? You were married for 20 years. She blames me as much as you. Doesn't she understand that my kids need me? Yes, she does. We all do. Go back and face the music, Dom. Explain what Mal did. Be realistic, Stephen. They'd never understand. They'd lock me up and throw away the key. Or worse. You think what you're doing now is helping your case? Lawyers don't pay for themselves. This is what I have. This is what you taught me. I never taught you to be a thief. No, you taught me to navigate other people's minds. But after what happened to Mal, there weren't a whole lot of legitimate ways for me to use that skill. Miles looks at Cobb. Why did you come here, Dom? Cobb shifts slightly. I found a way home, a job, for powerful people. If I pull it off, I can get back to my family. But I need help. Miles realizes something. My God, you're here to corrupt one of my brightest and best. If you have someone good enough, you have to let them decide for themselves. You know what I'm offering. Money? No, not just money. The chance to build cathedrals, entire cities, things that have never existed, things that couldn't exist in the real world. Everybody dreams, Cobb. Architects are supposed to make those dreams real. That's not what you used to say. You told me that in the real world, it'd be building attic conversions and gas stations. You said that if I mastered the dream share, I'd have a whole new way of creating and showing people my creations. You told me it would free me. Miles looks at Cobb, sad. And I'm sorry. I was wrong. No, you weren't. Your vision was a vision of pure creativity. It's where I took it that was wrong. And now you want me to let someone else follow you into fantasy? They won't actually come on the job. They'll just design the levels and teach them to the dreamers. Design them yourself. Mal won't let me. Miles looks at Cobb, appalled. Come back to reality, Dom, please. You want to know what's real, Stephen? Your grandchildren waiting for their dad to come back. This job, this last job, is how I get there. Miles looks down and fiddles with his papers. I wouldn't be standing here if there were any other way. I can get home, but I need an architect who is as good as I was. Miles looks Cobb in the eye and decides, I've got someone better. Miles and Cobb stand by as students file out of a lecture. Ariadne! A young woman carrying books turns. This is Ariadne. I'd like you to meet Mr. Cobb. She sizes him up with quick eyes, offers her hand. Pleased to meet you. If you have a few moments, Mr. Cobb has a job offer to discuss with you. A work placement? He smiles. Not exactly. Ariadne leans against the parapet overlooking Paris on the rooftop. She unwraps a sandwich, watching Cobb pull out a pad of graph paper and a pen. He offers them. She bites her sandwich. A test. Her mouth full. Aren't you going to tell me anything? Before I describe the job, I have to know you could do it. Why? It's not strictly speaking legal. Ariadne raises her eyebrows. You have 2 minutes to draw a maze that takes me 1 minute to solve. Ariadne takes the pad and pen. Cobb looks at his watch. Go. She starts drawing lines on the grid, constructing a maze. Stop. Ariadne holds the pen and pad to Cobb. He glances at it, then, looking her in the eye, traces the solution. She is taken aback. Cobb rips off the sheet and hands the pad back. Again. She traces straight lines, concentrating. Stop. She hands Cobb the pad, a touch pleased. Cobb solves the puzzle instantly, as before. Her smile falls. You'll have to... She grabs the pad, frustrated, but this time she flips it over and starts drawing on the blank cardboard on the back. Cobb watches, surprised. He smiles. He sees that she is drawing circles, creating a maze based on concentric rings. Ariadne hands back the pad, defiant. Cobb takes the pen and starts the maze. This time, he gets stuck. He nods. That's more like it. On a narrow street in Paris, Arthur stops at a warehouse door. He consults a piece of paper. Inside is a large, dusty warehouse. The sliding door cracks open. Arthur enters and looks around approvingly. Arthur drags lawn chairs into the middle of the room. He erects a table, lays out several silver cases, unpacking them, laying out lines of tubing, mechanisms. Cobb and Ariadne sit at an outdoor table at a cafe. They say we only use a fraction of the true potential of our brains, but they're talking about when we're awake. While we dream, the mind performs wonders. Such as, how do you imagine a building? You consciously create each aspect, puzzling over it in stages, but sometimes when your imagination flies, I'm discovering it. Exactly, genuine inspiration. Cobb leans forward and draws on the paper tablecloth. In a dream, your mind continuously does that. Cobb has drawn a circle made of 2 arrows. It creates and perceives a world simultaneously, so well that you don't feel your brain creating. That's why we can short-circuit the process. How? By taking over the creating part. Cobb draws a straight line between the two arrows. This is where you come in. You build the world of the dream. We take the subject into that dream and let him fill it with his subconscious. But are you trying to fool him that the dream is actually real life? Cobb nods. While we're in there, we don't want him to realize he's dreaming. How could I ever get enough detail to convince him that it's real? Our dreams feel real while we're in them. It's only when we wake up we realize things were strange. Ariadne gestures around them. But all the textures of real life, the stone, the fabric, cars, people, your mind can't create all this. It does every time you dream. Let me ask you a question. You never remember the beginning of your dreams, do you? You just turn up in the middle of what's going on. I guess. So, how did we end up at this restaurant? We came here from, Ariadne trails off, confused. How did we get here? Where are we? Ariadne thinks, unable to remember. A faint rumble begins. Oh my God, we're dreaming. Cobb nods. The rumble is building. Stay calm. We're actually asleep in the workshop. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming, remember? Ariadne looks around, mind reeling. Cobb braces. The restaurant violently fragments, exploding and imploding particles of furniture, walls, people flying around. Ariadne wonders at the mayhem whirling around them. Cobb shields his head against the debris. She sees him and shouts over the noise. If it's just a dream, why are you covering your... Ariadne is wiped from her seat by a massive blast, and in the workshop, she jolts awake. Because it's never just a dream. Ariadne turns to Cobb's voice. They are both sitting in lawn chairs. Arthur watches over them. And a face full of glass hurts like hell, doesn't it? While we're in it, it's real. That's why the military developed dream sharing. A training program where soldiers could strangle, stab, and shoot each other and then wake up. How did the architects get involved? Someone had to design the dreams. He says to Arthur, let's go another 5 minutes. We were only asleep for 5 minutes? We talked for an hour at least. When you dream, your mind functions more quickly, so time seems to pass more slowly. 5 minutes in the real world gives you an hour in the dream. Let's see how much trouble you can cause in 5 minutes. Ariadne walks down the crowded street with Cobb. Cobb looks around at the street, the cafe, approving. It's good. You've got the cafe, the layout. You forgot the bookshop, but pretty much everything else is here. Ariadne looks at the passerby. Who are the people? They are projections of my subconscious. Yours? Sure. You are the dreamer. I am the subject. My subconscious populates your world. That's one way we get at a subject's thoughts. His mind creates the people, so we can literally talk to his subconscious. How else do you do it? Architecture? Build a bank vault or a jail, something secure, and the person's mind will fill it with information he's trying to protect. Then you break in and steal it. Exactly. Ariadne wonders at the detail of the street. I love the concrete sense of things. She stamps her foot. Real weight, you know? I thought a dream space would be all about visual, but it's the feel of things. The question is, what happens when you start to mess with the physics? She concentrates on the street. The street starts to bend in half. The buildings on either side folding in until they form the inside of a cube of city, gravity functioning independently on each plane. Ariadne looks up, or down, at the people on the opposite city surface. Cobb watches her excitement. It's something, isn't it? Quietly. Yes, it is. As they walk, Ariadne notices more and more projections staring at her. Why are they looking at me? Because you're changing things. My subconscious feels that someone else is creating the world. The more you change things, the quicker the projections converge on you. Converge? They feel the foreign nature of the dreamer and attack like white blood cells fighting an infection. They're going to attack us? Just you, actually. They walk along the street to where it joins the next gravitational plane. They step up onto the different plane and walk down the street towards a river. As Ariadne approaches, steps emerge from the flagstone and she leads Cobb up onto a small jetty. As she concentrates, pillars emerge and a bridge starts to telescope out from the jetty. They step onto it as it grows. Cobb is impressed. It's beautiful, but if you keep on changing things... People crossing the bridge stare at Ariadne. Several of them bump her shoulder as they pass. You mind telling your subconscious to take it easy? That's why it's called subconscious. I can't control it. The bridge now spans the Seine. Cobb marvels at it. Arched stone, iron pillars. It's... Cobb pauses, thinking and remembering. We insert a cut of Mal, hair blowing. She turns to Cobb, smiling and laughing. He smiles back. They are on the same bridge. I know this bridge. This place is real. You didn't imagine it. You remembered it. She nods. I cross it every day on my way to the college. Never recreate places from your memory. Always imagine new places. You have to draw from what you know. Use pieces. A street lamp, phone booths, a type of brick, not whole areas. Several people around them echo Cobb's attitude. Why? Because building dreams out of your own memories is the surest way to lose your grip on what's real and what's a dream. Did that happen to you? Cobb says nothing. He stands there, staring at Ariadne. People around her stop and look at her, hostile. Look, this isn't about me. Cobb reaches for Ariadne's arm, turns her to him. Is that why you need me to build your dreams? A passerby grabs Ariadne's shoulder. Leave her alone! More of the crowd joins in, pulling at Ariadne, holding her arms open. Cobb pulls people off and the crowd pushes him away. Cobb sees someone walking purposefully through the crowd toward the helpless Ariadne. It is Mal. She approaches with even strides. Ariadne stares at her uneasy. Wake me up, Cobb. As Mal walks, she pulls out a large knife. Mal, no! Wake me up! Ariadne screams as Mal lunges at her with the knife. Ariadne wakes, breathing hard. Arthur moves to her. It's okay. Why couldn't I wake? The only way to wake from inside the dream is to die. Cobb in the lawn chair opposite pulls his tubes out. She'll need a totem. A what? Some kind of personal icon. A small object that you can always have with you, and no one else knows. Cobb gets to his feet. Ariadne stares at him furious. He heads to the bathroom. That's some subconscious you've got, Cobb, calling after him. She's a real charmer. Sounds like you've met Mrs. Cobb. Surprised. She's his wife? Arthur nods, pulling off Ariadne's tubes. So, a totem. You'll need something small, potentially heavy. Cobb takes out his pewter spinning top and spins it on the marble counter. Ariadne looks at Arthur, puzzled. Like a coin? Too common. You need something that has a weight or movement that only you know. Cobb studies the spin of the top as it decays, becoming more and more eccentric. What's yours? Arthur holds out a die. It's a loaded die. Ariadne reaches for it, but Arthur snatches it away. I can't let you handle it. That's the point. No one else can know the weight or balance of it. Why? So, when you imagine your totem, in the bathroom, Cobb's spinning top wobbles over. You know, beyond a doubt that you're not in someone else's dream. Cobb grabs it like a drowning man reaching for a lifeline. Ariadne thinks this over. That's not an issue for me. Why not? Arthur, maybe you can't see what's going on. Maybe you don't want to. But Cobb has got problems he's tried to bury down there, and I'm not going to open my mind to someone like that. Ariadne gets to her feet and walks away. She'll be back. Arthur turns to Cobb. He's standing in the bathroom doorway. I've never seen anyone pick it up so fast. One reality won't be enough for her now. When she comes back, get her building mazes. Where will you be? I've got to talk to Eames. Eames? But he's in Mombasa. Cobal's backyard. Necessary risk. There are plenty of other thieves. We don't just need a thief. We need a forger. Crowded, bustling, smoke-filled, gambling den in Mombasa. A Westerner in his 40s, shabby suit, is squeezed in at a dice game. This is Eames. He fiddles with his last 2 chips. Rub them together against each other all you like. They're not going to breed. Eames looks up to see Cobb. You never know. Eames tosses down his last chips. The dice are rolled. Drink? Eames loses. You're buying. Cobb follows Eames. Eames mysteriously produces 2 stacks of chips and puts them down in front of the cashier. Cobb pulls one off the table and squints at the embossed name. Your spelling hasn't improved. Eames grabs the chip, hands it to the cashier. Piss off. How's your handwriting? Eames takes his money, smiles at Cobb. Versatile. Eames leads Cobb down the quiet street. Word is, you're not welcome in these parts. Yeah? There's a price on your head from Cobalt Engineering. Pretty big one, actually. You wouldn't sell me out. Eames looks at Cobb, offended. Course I would. He smiles. Not when you hear what I'm selling. A ramshackle balcony overlooking a bust street. Eames pours. Inception. Eames' glass stops halfway to his mouth. Don't bother telling me it's impossible. It's perfectly possible. Just bloody difficult. That's what I keep saying to Arthur. Arthur? You still working with that stick in the mud? He's a good point man. The best. But he has no imagination. If you're going to perform Inception, you need imagination. You've done it before? Yes and no. We tried it. Got the idea in place, but didn't take. You didn't plant it deep enough. It's not just about the depth. You need the simplest version of the idea. The one that will grow naturally in the subject's mind. Subtle art. That's why I'm here. What's the idea you need to plant? We want the heir to a major corporation to break up his father's empire. See, right now you got various political motivations, anti-monopolistic sentiment and so forth, but all that stuff's at the mercy of the subject's prejudice. You have to go to the basic, which is the relationship with the father. He downs his drink. Do you have a chemist? Cobb shakes his head. There's a man here, Yusuf. Formulates his own versions of the compounds. Let's go see him. Once you've lost your tail. Cobb reacts. Beck by the bar, blue tie. Came in about 2 minutes after we did. Cobalt Engineering? They pretty much own Mombasa. Cobb glances over the balcony. Run interference. We'll meet downstairs in half an hour. Back here? Last place they'd expect. Eames downs his drink and rises. He walks over to the businessman. Freddie! The businessman looks up, awkward. Freddie Simmons, it is you! Cobb nonchalantly slips over the balcony, dropping hard into the midst of the crowd on the street below. Eames looks harder. Oh, no it isn't. Cobb stands up, pushes into the crowd. Faces peer at him. He moves, trying to blend. He turns. A second businessman is there. Yes? We need to... Cobb headbutts the second businessman and pushes past him. The first businessman reaches out of the bar, sees Cobb's wake, and dives after him. Cobb races headlong through tight passageways, weaving through or knocking into locals. He steps into a dark, crowded cafe, scanning the tables. The first businessman enters and spots him. An African man gets in Cobb's face, jabbering at him in Swahili. Cobb considers his options. The first businessman draws a gun. Cobb bolts, steps up on a table and out an open window, scrambling onto the alley outside. Cobb looks left, right. He cuts left into a narrow, crowded alley. The alley narrows to a dead end. Faces in the crowd start to watch Cobb. People start to surround him. Cobb looks back the way he came. The two businessmen are there, guns drawn. Cobb sees a small gap between the buildings at the narrow end. He throws himself into it, but gets stuck halfway. The crowd bears down, grabbing for him as Cobb struggles to squeeze himself through the gap. Cobb is moving inches as his pursuers gain yards. The crowd is upon him. He bursts free, tumbling onto the next street and rolling out of sight. Cobb jumps to his feet in the market square. Two more businessmen move towards him. Cobb bolts, but a car skids up and blocks his path. The door opens. Sato is in the back. "Care for a lift, Mr. Cobb?" Cobb jumps in. "What brings you to Mombasa, Mr. Sato?" "I have to protect my investment." Eames stands on the pavement in the coffee house. The car pulls up. Cobb beckons from the rear window. Eames looks at Sato and back to Cobb. "This is your idea of losing a tail?" He shrugs. "Different tail." Arthur sits at a table, working on a mechanism. A small cough prompts him to look up. Ariadne is there. "He said you'd be back." "I tried not to come. But there's nothing else quite like it. No paper, no pens, nothing between you and raw, direct creation." Arthur picks up his mechanism. "Shall we take a look at paradoxical architecture?" Ariadne nods, takes off her coat, and we cut to the Penrose steps. Arthur leads Ariadne down some busy steps in a large glass and steel atrium in an office complex. You're going to have to master a few tricks if you're going to build 3 complete dream levels. A secretary drops some papers as they pass. What sort of tricks? They take a tight turn and continue down the next flight. In a dream, you can cheat architecture into impossible shapes. That lets you create closed loops, like the Penrose steps, the infinite staircase. Ariadne freezes. They are in the exact spot they started descending from, next to the secretary gathering her papers. Ariadne puzzles at the impossible construction of the stairs. "See?" Arthur stops her gently. They are on the highest step, with a large drop to the next step. Arthur gestures at the drop. Paradox. A closed loop like this helps you disguise the boundaries of the dream you've created. How big do the levels have to be? Anything from the floor of a building to an entire city. But it has to be complicated enough for us to hide from the projections. A maze. The better the maze, the longer we have before the projections catch us. Ariadne looks around, sees people looking at Arthur. My subconscious seems polite enough. You wait. They'll turn ugly. No one likes to see someone else messing around in their mind. Cobb can't build anymore, can he? I don't know if he can't, but he won't. He thinks it's safer if he doesn't know the layouts. Why? He won't tell me. I think it's Mal. I think she's getting stronger. His ex-wife? She's not his ex. They're still together? Arthur turns to Ariadne, gently. No, she's dead, Ariadne. What you see in there is just his projection of her. What was she like in real life? She was lovely. Sato deposits a file in front of Cobb, photos, documents. As Cobb runs through them, he passes them to Eames. Robert Fischer, 32, heir to Fischer Morrow Energy Conglomerate. He spent his whole life being groomed as successor. Breaking up his father's empire will take a radical shift in his thinking. What's your problem with Fischer? That's not your concern. This isn't the usual corporate espionage, Mr. Sato. This is Inception. The seed of the idea we plant will grow in this man's mind. It'll change him. It might even come to define him. Sato looks at Cobb. My sources suggest you might not have always been so cautious. Then you need new sources, Mr. Sato. Sato considers Cobb and shrugs. Fischer Morrow has the regulators in their pockets. We're the last company standing between them and total energy dominance, and we can no longer compete. Soon they'll control the energy supply of half the world. They'll be able to blackmail governments, dictate policy. In effect, they become a new superpower. The world needs Robert Fischer to change his mind. That's where we come in. How's Robert Fischer's relationship to his father? Rumor is the relationship is complicated. We'll need more than a rumor, Mr. Sato. Eames picks up a photo. A distinguished executive of 68. Can you get me access to him? Browning, Fisher Sr.'s right-hand man, Fisher Jr.'s godfather. It should be possible, if you can get the right references. References are something of a specialty for me, Mr. Sato. Later, in a decrepit building, Eames leads Cobb and Sato down uneven steps to a doorway. Peeling paint and buzzing flies, they ascend to a dusty, wire-reinforced glass door, which Eames pushes open. Row upon row of wooden shelves, holding hundreds of dusty glass bottles of all shapes and colors. At the far end, a portly 40-year-old man rises from behind his desk, beckoning. This is Yusuf. Come, come. Eames shakes Yusuf's hand. Yusuf stops at Cobb. Ah yes, Mr. Cobb. I've heard so much about you. He indicates the chairs. Please. Yusuf chases a cat off Sato's chair. Bloody cats. Yusuf moves to a shelf and runs his fingers over the glass bottles. None of them has a label. You work using somnacin, I think, Mr. Cobb. You're well informed, Mr. Yusuf. Yusuf places a bottle on the desk in front of Cobb. Somnacin? Proudly. Yusuf's somnacin. Yusuf pulls the stopper, holds it towards Cobb's nose. As good as the real thing? Yusuf whips the bottle away from Cobb, offended. Better! Yusuf holds the bottle to the light, marveling. Binds the dreamers tight. Lets them dream as one. Makes it real. Of course, if you prefer, you could use somnacin brand. If you could explain to the International Control Council what you wanted it for. Yusuf puts the bottle back onto the shelf and sits. You are seeking a chemist. Cobb nods. To formulate compounds for a job? And to come into the field with us. I rarely go into the field, Mr. Cobb. We need you there to tailor compounds to our particular requirements, which are great depth. A dream within a dream. 2 levels? 3. Not possible. That many dreams within dreams would be too unstable. I've done it before. You just have to add a sedative. A powerful sedative. How many team members? 5. 6. The only way to know you've done the job is if I go in with you. There's no room for tourists on these jobs, Mr. Sato. This time, it would seem there is. Cobb looks away, uneasy. Yusuf pulls out another bottle. Of course. I use it every day. Yusuf hands it to Cobb, who considers the light liquid inside. For what? Yusuf beckons them further into the pharmacy, to a metal door. He stops and has second thoughts. Perhaps you do not want to see. Cobb motions to continue. Yusuf pulls out a large key. Inside is a dark room with rows of low cots, each with a sleeping occupant. Tubes connect their wrists. An elderly bald man watches over them. Eames counting. 18, 20, all connected? Bloody hell. They come every day to share the dream. Yusuf nods at the elderly bald man, who moves to the nearest bed. He reaches out to the occupant and gives his face a firm slap. The sleeper does not even stir. See? Very stable. How long do they dream? 3, 4 hours every day. How long in dream time? With this compound, about 40 hours, each and every day. Sato surveys the room, appalled. Why do they do it? Tell him, Mr. Cobb. After a while, he looks at Sato. It becomes the only way you can dream. Do you still dream, Mr. Cobb? Cobb stares at the sleepers, uneasy. They come here every day to sleep? Elderly bald man. No. Cobb turns to the elderly bald man, who looks fondly at his dreamers. They come to be woken up. The dream has become their reality. The elderly bald man pokes a crooked finger at Cobb's chest. And who are you to say otherwise? Cobb stares at the elderly bald man, disturbed. Cobb turns to Yusuf and tosses him the bottle. Let's see what you can do. Cobb is lying on an empty cot asleep, Yusuf standing over him. As we move in on Cobb's sleeping face, we hear the sound of a freight train building, and we cut to a wasteland. We're close on Cobb's face as he lies, eyes closed, cheek pressed to a metal rail. The sound of the train is deafening. Cobb is breathing, 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 and his eyes are open. Yusuf is watching him in the back room of the pharmacy once again. Sharp, no? Cobb nods and gets to his feet. He looks around. In the bathroom, Cobb splashes water on his face, breathing hard. A curtain billows. Mal turns to us, hair blowing, smiling. Cobb fumbles in his pockets and pulls out his spinning top. He tries to set it spinning on the back edge of the sink, but it falls to the floor and rolls toward the door. Sato is there, watching Cobb. He looks down at the spinning top. Everything all right, Mr. Cobb? Cobb dries his face with a paper towel, picks up his top. Everything is fine. We're close on a small brass chess piece. Ariadne tips it over. Frowning, she picks up a micro drill and peels back the felt on the bottom. She widens a hole on one side of its base and tests the tipping point again. A noise makes her look up. Ariadne comes into the main space. Someone is there, unpacking one of the mechanisms. It's Cobb. You're back! Cobb looks up with a start, caught out. Are you going under on your own? I just need to test some things. I didn't realize anyone was here. Just working on my totem. Ariadne holds up the chess piece, and Cobb reaches for it. Let me see. Ariadne snaps it out of his reach and smiles. Cobb nods. You're learning. It's an elegant solution to keeping track of reality. And your invention? No, Mal's. Cobb pulls out his spinning top and looks at it. This one was hers. She would spin it in a dream and it would never topple. It would just spin and spin. Arthur told me she died. She did. How are the mazes coming? Ariadne indicates 3 large architectural models. Good. Each level relates to a part of the subject's subconscious we're trying to access. I'm making the bottom level a hospital so that Fischer will bring his father there. Don't tell me. Remember, you only want the dreamer to know the layout. Why is that so important? In case one of us brings in part of our subconscious, you wouldn't want any projections knowing the layout. In case you bring Mal in? Cobb says nothing. You won't build yourself because if you know the maze, then she knows it, and she'd sabotage the operation. You can't keep her out, can you? Cobb says nothing. Do the others know? No. You have to warn them if it's getting worse. Cobb gently. I didn't say it's getting worse. Look, Ariadne, I need them for this job. I need you for this job. Without your help, I'll never get back to my children, and that's all I can care about right now. Why can't you go home, Cobb? Cobb looks at her. deciding what to say. They think I killed her. How did she die? Cobb thinks. We insert a cut of Mal, wind blowing her hair, smiling at Cobb. Now we see Cobb shaking his head, tears streaming and begging. Thank you. For what? Not asking whether I did. Ariadne, Arthur, Yusuf, Eames, and Sato sit around the room looking at files. Cobb presides. The mark is Robert Fischer, heir to the Australian energy conglomerate Fischer Morrow. Cobb opens a large presentation pad. I will split up my father's empire. Cobb turns to the team. An idea Robert Fischer's conscious mind would never accept. We have to plant it deep in his subconscious. How deep? 3 levels down. A dream within a dream? Within a dream? Is that even possible? Yes, it is. Now, the subconscious motivates through emotion, not reason, so we have to translate the idea into an emotional concept. How do you translate a business strategy into an emotion? That's what we have to figure out. Robert and his father have a tense relationship, worse even than the gossip columns have suggested. Do you play on that? Suggest breaking up his father's company as a screw you to the old men? No, positive emotion trumps negative emotion every time. We yearn for people to be reconciled, for catharsis. We need positive emotional logic. Eames thinks and paces, looks back at the board. Try this. My father accepts I want to create for myself, not follow in his footsteps. That might work. Might? We'll have to do better than that. Thanks for the contribution, Arthur. Forgive me for wanting a little specificity, Eames. Inception is not about specificity. When we get into his head, we're going to have to work with what we find. Arthur shrugs, frustrated. The team are in the middle of a deserted intersection in New York. Ariadne is showing Yusuf aspects of the geography. We could split the idea into emotional triggers. Use one on each level. How do you mean? On the top level, we open his relationship with his father. Say, I will not follow in my father's footsteps. Next level down, we've accessed his ambition and self-esteem. We feed him, I will create something for myself. Then, the bottom level, we bring out the emotional big guns. My father doesn't want me to be him? That could do it. How do you produce these emotional triggers? I forge each emotional concept in the style and manner of Peter Browning, a key figure in Fischer's emotional life. 2 African pedestrians wander into view. Are those yours? Yusuf? Yeah, sorry. Suppress them. We don't bring our own projections into a dream. We let Fischer's subconscious supply the people. Sato, when do I see Browning? You fly out to Sydney on Tuesday. We've arranged for you to spend several days. Eames sits in a crowded room. Boxes and files are piled high. Browning stands by a pair of double doors. As part of a consulting litigation team working for Browning. I'm not smelling settlement here. We take them down. Mr. Browning, Maurice Fischer's policy is always one of avoiding litigation. Browning turns to the lawyer, calm but powerful. Shall we relay your concerns directly to Maurice? Browning opens the door to Maurice Fischer's inner office. Eames leans in to watch as Browning beckons the lawyer into. The office is a makeshift hospital room, a bed where the desk should be. Browning addresses a figure at the window, Robert Fischer, 30s, abstracted. How is he? Fischer turns to Browning, motions silence as he glances at his father in the bed, wheezing gently. I don't want to bother him unnecessarily, but I know that... Robert! I've told you to keep out the damn... Maurice lashes out, knocking things from his bedside table. A nurse calms Maurice as Fischer crouches to retrieve a framed photograph. He looks at the photo through the broken glass. A young boy holds a pinwheel clearly made by a child. Each of the points is numbered in pen. His father blows on it. Must be a cherished memory of his. I put it by his bed. He hasn't even noticed. Robert, we have to talk about a power of attorney. I know this is hard for you, but it's important that we start to think about the future. Not now, Uncle Peter. Browning looks at Fischer, considering, and biding his time. The vultures are circling. The sicker Maurice Fischer becomes, the stronger Peter Browning becomes. Eames gestures at a mirror, as if offering to shake hands. I've had time to learn Browning's physical presence and mannerisms. In the mirror, Browning gestures back to him. Now, in the dream, I can impersonate Browning and suggest the concepts to Fischer's conscious mind. He draws a diagram. Then we take Fischer down another level, and his own subconscious feeds it right back to him. Arthur, impressed. So he gives himself the idea. Precisely. That's the only way to make it stick. It has to seem self-generated. Eames, I'm impressed. Your condescension, as always, is much appreciated, Arthur. The team sits on the steps of a large marble lobby, debating. Ariadne is showing Arthur the lobby. He's not scheduled for surgery, no dental or nothing. I thought he had some knee thing. Nothing they'd put him under for. Besides, we need a good 10 hours. Sydney to Los Angeles. They turned to Sato. 12 hours and 45 minutes. One of the longest flights in the world. He makes it every 2 weeks. Fischer steps out of a black town car and walks across the tarmac towards a Gulfstream jet, accompanied by 2 aides. Surely he flies private? Not if there were unexpected maintenance with his plane. Fischer is met at the steps by a distraught flight officer. Cobb chews this over. Arthur comes over. It'd have to be a 747. Why? On a 747, the pilots are up above. First class is in the nose, so nobody walks through the cabin. We'd have to buy out the whole cabin, the first class flight attendant. I have bought the airline. Everyone turns to Sato. It seemed neater. Neater, huh? He gets to his feet. Well, now we have 10 uninterrupted hours. To Ariadne. Nice lobby, by the way. The team is back in the workshop, deep in discussion. My question is, how do we go down 3 layers with enough stability? 3 layers down, a little turbulence is going to translate into an earthquake. The dreams are going to collapse with the slightest disturbance. Yusuf clears his throat. Sedation. For sleep stable enough to create 3 layers of dreaming. Yusuf depresses a plunger. Arthur is sleeping in a chair. We will have to combine it with an extremely powerful sedative. Eames slaps Arthur hard. Arthur does not stir. Arthur unconsciously rubs his cheek. The compound we will be using to share the dream is an advanced somnasin derivative. It creates a very clear connection between dreamers, whilst actually accelerating brain function, buying us more time in each level. Brain function in the dream will be about 20 times normal. And when you go into a dream within that dream, the effect is compounded. How much time? 3 dreams, that's 10 hours times 20 times 20 times 20. Meth was never my strong suit. It's basically a week, 1 layer down, 6 months, 2 layers down. And 10 years in the 3rd level? Who wants to spend 10 years in a dream? Depends on the dream. It's not going to take us long to crack Fischer open once we get going. We'll be out in a couple of days, max. How are we going to get out once we've made the plant? To Cobb. I hope you've got something a little more elegant in mind than shooting me in the head like last time. Arthur tilts back in his chair. Yusuf turns to Cobb. A kick. What's a kick? Eames slips his foot under Arthur's chair leg and tips it. Arthur's legs shoot up instinctively for balance. That, Ariadne, would be a kick. That feeling of falling which snaps you awake. We'll use that to jolt ourselves awake once we're done. But how are we going to feel that through the sedation? That's the clever part. I customized the sedative. Cobbs, Eames, and Yusuf watch Arthur asleep in a chair. To leave inner ear function unimpaired. Yusuf, with a wicked grin, slowly tips Arthur's chair backward. As he falls, Arthur's body jerks, eyes opening, just before he hits the floor. Arthur nods, thinking. That way, however deep the sleeper will still feel falling. Yusuf gleefully leans a sleeping Arthur to one side in a makeshift lab. Or tipping. Arthur goes down with a crash, jerking awake. Arthur thinks this through. Even that won't cut through 3 layers of deep sleep. The trick is to devise a kick for each level, then synchronize them to get a snap that penetrates all 3 layers. Arthur looks at Cobb, finally getting it. We use the musical countdowns to synchronize the different kicks. Ariadne comes into the darkened main workshop. Cobb is lying on one of the chairs asleep, plugged into a mechanism. Ariadne stands over him watching. She opens the case and pulls one of the tubes, sits, checking the dials, and she injects the needle into her arm. Ariadne ascends in an elevator. She looks at the buttons and spots the B. The elevator stops. She looks through the grill at a young girl's bedroom. Ariadne pulls back the grill and walks across the room, considering the dusty furnishings. At the window is a doll's house, front slightly ajar. Ariadne opens it. Inside is a safe. She tries it, but it's locked. A noise startles her. She turns, looking through a doorway into another room. Ariadne looks into the room to see Cobb and Mal talking, arguing. A private moment. Mal brushes at Cobb's hair, trying to convince him. We hear snatches of conversation. You remember when you asked me to marry you? Of course. You said you had a dream. That we'd grow old together. And we can. You know how to find me. You know what you have to do. Cobb is shaking his head gently. Mal looks into Cobb's eyes, gentle and loving. Mal spots Ariadne spying on them. Freezes, staring hostile. Cobb turns and sees Ariadne, moves toward her, leaving Mal. You shouldn't be in here. Cobb guides her back to the elevator. I wanted to know what tests you need to do on your own every night. Cobb shuts the cage door. Ariadne hits a button. The elevator rises. Through the grill, Ariadne can see a beach stretching off into the distance. The elevator stops. Mal sits on the sand. Beside her, the 2 children are crouched, away from us, building a sandcastle. Why do you do this to yourself? This is the only way I can still dream. Is it so important to dream? Cobb stares at his family. In my dreams, we are still together. The kids, without turning around, jump up and run away. The cage-style elevator continues to descend. But these aren't just dreams, are they? They're memories. You said never to use memories. And I shouldn't. You're keeping her alive. No. You can't let her go. No, these are moments I regret. Moments I turned into dreams so I could change them. Ariadne's fingers move across the buttons and stop at the B. What have you got buried down there that you regret? Cobb pushes her hand away and hits the 3rd floor button. There's only one thing you need to understand about me. Ariadne follows Cobb into the kitchen. A thin man is there, standing by a table. He holds a folded piece of paper. This is your house? Mine and Mal's. Where is she? She has already died. The thin man offers Cobb the piece of paper. A child's shout. Cobb turns. Ariadne follows his gaze to the garden. A small blond boy faces away from them, crouched on his haunches to look at something on the ground. It's James, my boy. He's found something. Maybe a worm. A slightly older girl runs into view, and there's Philippa. She crouches beside the boy, their faces away from us. They point and discuss whatever it is on the ground. I thought about calling out so they'd turn and smile those incredible smiles, but I'm out of time. The thin man thrusts the paper into Cobb's hand. Right now or never, Cobb. Cobb nods and turns from the window. Then I panic that I'll always wish I'd seen them turn, that I can't waste this chance. Cobb turns back to call out, but the children race off, and the moment has passed, and whatever I do, the dream is always the same. When I'm about to call, they run. Cobb watches them run off, calling for Grandma, faces unseen. If I'm going to see their faces again, I've got to get back here in the real world. Behind him, Ariadne slams the grill shut, and Cobb turns. Ariadne hits the basement button. The elevator starts to descend. Ariadne stares, fascinated at glimpses of floors slip past. Mal's childhood bedroom, a thundering wall of a freight train. The elevator stops. Through the grill, Ariadne sees a hotel suite. She pulls open the grill and steps cautiously out into disheveled bedcloths, upended room service table, strawberries across the floor. Clearly a struggle. Ariadne steps forward. Smash. She looks down to see that she has kicked over a champagne flute. Ariadne feels a draft. The curtain billows. What are you doing here? Ariadne turns. Mal is there. My name is... I know who you are. What are you doing here? I don't know. Trying to understand. How could you understand? Do you know what it is to be a lover? To be half of a whole? No. Mal moves slowly towards Ariadne. I'll tell you a riddle. You're waiting for a train that will take you far away. You know where you hope this train will take you, but you don't know for sure. Mal glides around Ariadne, looking her over. But it doesn't matter. How can it not matter to you where the train will take you? Because you'll be together. Cobb is standing in the elevator. Mal nods and looks at him. How could you bring her here, Dom? What is this place? A hotel. We spent our anniversaries in this suite. What happened here? Mal picks up the broken stem of the champagne flute. Cobb pulls Ariadne into the elevator. Mal throws herself towards Ariadne. Cobb slams the grill, and Mal smashes against it again and again like a wild animal. Ariadne flinches. You promised! You said we would be together! We can. We will. But I need you to stay here for now. You said we would grow old together! Cobb pushes a button and the elevator starts to rise. I'll come back. I need you to stay here on your own for now. Just while I do this job. Then we can be together. We'll be together, you promised! Mal throws herself against the grill. We cut to Ariadne watching Cobb sleep. His eyes gradually flicker open. He sees her watching him. You think you can just build a prison of memories to lock her in? You think that's going to contain her? The lights come on. Sato and Arthur stand in the doorway. Maurice Fischer just died in Sydney. When's the funeral? Thursday, in Los Angeles. Robert will accompany the body Tuesday at the outside. We have to move. Cobb gets up and Ariadne comes over to him. I'm coming with you. No, I promised Miles. The team needs someone in there who understands what you're struggling with. If you don't want it to be me, then you need to show Arthur what I just saw. Cobb looks at Ariadne and turns to Sato. We need one more seat on the plane. Sato stands looking out the window at a 747. Cobb arrives beside him. They watch a coffin being loaded. If I get on this plane and you haven't taken care of things, when we land, I go to jail for the rest of my life. Complete the job en route. I make one phone call from the plane. You will have no trouble clearing immigration. In the 747's first-class cabin, it's luxurious and only has 10 seats. Cobb finds his, seeing Ariadne in the seat behind him. They do not acknowledge each other. Behind her is Arthur, looking out the window. Eames enters, stuffs his bag into an overhead bin, blocking the passenger behind, Robert Fischer, standing there patient, bag in hand, wearing black. Oh, sorry. Eames squeezes up against his seat to let Fischer brush past. Fischer moves to his seat directly in front of Cobb. Eames tosses Cobb a passport. Cobb flips it open. It's Fischer's. He pockets it. Yusuf and Sato enter and take their seats. The 747 hurtles down the runway. Cobb looks down at his hand, a tiny vial taped to the center of his palm. He removes the cap, and the seatbelt sign goes dark. Cobb unbuckles and stands. Excuse me. Fischer looks up. Yes? I think this is yours. Cobb holds up the open passport, comparing the picture to Fischer. Fischer's hand goes into his pocket. Cobb hands Fischer the passport. Would you gentlemen care for a drink? Water. Same. Fischer gives Cobb a thin smile and holds up his passport. Well, thank you. No problem. Look, I couldn't help noticing your name. You're not related to Maurice Fischer. Fischer takes a beat, but Cobb seems harmless. Actually, he was my father. I'm very sorry for your loss. He was an inspiring figure. The flight attendant brings their drinks and Cobb takes them. Thanks. As he turns to Fischer, he lowers his right hand. A clear liquid drops into Fischer's water as Cobb hands it to him. To Maurice Fischer. They drink. I'll leave you in peace. Fischer grants him a smile. The great plane soars through a burning cloudscape. Cobb reaches into the overhead for a blanket and lets it fall onto Fischer's head. Fischer doesn't flinch. He is asleep. Cobb signals the others. The first flight attendant unlocks a cupboard in the galley and then leaves, closing the curtain. Arthur moves into the galley and pulls out a mechanism case. Cobb and Arthur open the mechanism, uncoil the tubes, feed them around the window side of each of the seats. Arthur rolls up Fischer's cuff, pushes the needle cap into Fischer's wrist. Arthur pulls Fischer's cuff down and hides the tubes behind the armrest of Fischer's seat. Arthur runs the next tube to Ariadne. Cobb puts the case on Yusuf's lap. Yusuf checks the timers and taps the syringes. The others recline their seats. Yusuf hits a button, closes the case, places it at his feet, and he settles back. We cut to a sedan. Cobb driving. Sato and Arthur are in the back. Rain beats down. Cobb pulls over. Yusuf stands on the corner, silver briefcase in hand, collar turned up against the rain. He reaches for the door. Yusuf clambers into the back, brushing rain from his face. Couldn't you have peed before we went under? Indicating the rain. Sorry. The front door opens and Eames climbs in, soaked. Bit too much free champagne before takeoff, Yusuf? Ha! Bloody ha! At least we know he'll be looking for a cab in this. Cobb pulls out into the heavy traffic. He weaves around several cars before lining up behind a yellow cab. Brace yourselves. Cobb hits the gas and rear-ends the cab with a crunch. The cab driver gets out, fuming. He heads to Cobb's window. Hey, asshole! Why don't you try driving without your thumbs up? He sees the silenced pistol Cobb's holding at his belly. Walk away. The cab driver backs off. Arthur jumps into the cab, and both cars pull away. Arthur slows in front of the train station, peering at the pedestrians. He spots Fischer, lights the cab's sign, and Fischer flags him down. Fischer jumps into the back, brushing rain from his shoulders. "Third and Market. Snappy." Eames jumps in from the other side. "What are you doing?" "Sorry, I thought it was free. Maybe we could share?" "Maybe not." Sato gets into the front passenger seat, pointing a gun. "Great." Contemptuous. "There's $500 in there, and the wallet is worth more than that. For that, you ought to at least drop me at my stop." Eames smiles at this. "I'm afraid..." A shot shatters the window by Eames's ear. Another shot impacts by Sato. "Get us out of here!" Arthur hits the gas, but a black SUV skids sideways in the front, blocking the path. A block behind, Cobb is at a light. Ariadne is getting in the front. Cobb has heard the gunfire. "Come on!" Cobb looks ahead to the ambush, hits the gas. The sedan rockets forward, but bam! A freight train clips the front of the sedan, shoving it sideways, as an endless train barrels past. A wall between Cobb and the ambush. A second SUV is behind the cab. Plain-clothed security men advance through the traffic, weapons trained on the cab. Bullets rip into the cab as Eames throws himself on top of Fischer, pulling a sack over his head. Inside the sedan, Ariadne watches the train passing. This wasn't in the design. Cobb backs up, spins around, heading for the tail of the train. The security man emerges from the front SUV, carrying an automatic rifle. He steps toward the cab through the rain, raises his weapon, and blasts the cab's windscreen. Cobb clears the end of the train and skids across the tracks. Arthur crouches down. He pushes the accelerator with his hand and yanks the wheel, flying blind. The cab nails the security man, crunching into the front SUV. Cobb smashes his car into the rear SUV, creating a gap. Arthur yanks the transmission and reverses, scraping through the gap. Security men dive out of the way. Arthur throws a jagged J-turn to head down a side street. Cobb follows in the other car. Rain whips across Arthur's face as he breathes. "Is everybody okay? Sato?" Arthur looks at Sato. Sato's hand is at his belly, covered in blood. The sedan and cab pull into the side entrance. Eames jumps out and pulls the shutter down behind them. In the warehouse, Yusuf and Eames pull Fischer from the cab, hustling him through a doorway. Cobb jumps out of the sedan, furious. "Arthur! Arthur, what the..." Arthur pulls the bloody Sato from the front seat. "Oh, Christ, is he dying?" "I don't know. What happened back there? Where were you?" "We were blocked by a freight train." Arthur to Ariadne. "Why would you put a train crossing in a downtown intersection?" "I didn't." Cobb snaps. "Why were we all ambushed, Arthur? Those weren't regular projections. They had been trained." "How could they have been trained?" "Fischer has had an extractor teach his mind to defend itself. His subconscious is militarized. It should have shown on the research. So why the hell didn't it?" "Calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. You were meant to check Fischer's background thoroughly. You can't make this kind of mistake. We're not prepared for this kind of violence." "Cobb, we've dealt with sub-security before. We just have to be more..." "That wasn't part of the plan, Arthur." He points at Sato. "He is dying." "So we put him out of his misery." Eames steps into the room, pulls his gun, and moves over Sato. "No! He's in agony. Let him wake up." Cobb grabs Eames's arm. "No!" They lock eyes. "It won't wake him up." "What do you mean, it won't wake him? When you die in a dream, you wake up." "Not from this. We are too heavily sedated to wake up that way." Eames looks at Yusuf and then to Cobb. "So what happens if one of us dies?" "That person doesn't wake up. Their mind drops into limbo." "Limbo?" "Unconstructed dream space." "What's down there?" "Raw, infinite subconscious. Nothing there but what's left behind by anyone on the team who's been trapped there before. On this team, it's just Cobb. How long would we be stuck there? You couldn't even think about trying to escape until the sedation eases. How long? Decades. It could be infinite. I don't know. Ask him. He's the one who's been there before. Eames moves to Cobb and looks him in the eye. Great. So now we're stuck in Fischer's mind, battling it out with his private army. And if we get hit, we're stuck in limbo till our brains dissolve into scrambled egg. Cobb says nothing. Sato groans more loudly. Let's get him upstairs. Sato is laid out on an old desk. Arthur examines him. He motions to Ariadne, and Eames watches Cobb. Hold this. Firm pressure. Arthur turns to Cobb. You knew the risks, and you didn't tell us. There wasn't meant to be any risk. We weren't supposed to be dealing with a load of guns. You had no right. It's the only way we can go 3 layers deep, Arthur. Arthur turns to Yusuf, hostile. And you went along with this? I trusted him. You trusted him? When? When he promised you half his share? No, he offered his whole share. Plus, he told me he had done it before. Arthur turns to Cobb. Oh yeah, with Mal. That worked out great, didn't it, Cobb? Cobb grabs Arthur. You don't know anything about that. This was the only way to do this job, Arthur. I did what I had to do to get back to my children. So you led us into a war zone with no way out. We have a way out. The kick. We just have to push on, do the job as fast as possible, and get out using the kick. Forget it. We go any deeper, we just raise the stakes. I'm sitting it out on this level. You'll never make it, Eames. Fischer's security is surrounding this place as we speak. The 10 hours of the flight is a week at this level. You'll never make it without getting killed. Downwards is the only way forwards. We have to carry on. Sato groans. Cobb stares at him. And we have to do it fast. Eames and Arthur weigh this. Eames, go get ready. Arthur, let's get in there and soften him up. Cobb and Arthur, wearing balaclavas, pull the sack from Fischer's head. He's chained to the radiator. I'm insured against kidnapping up to 10 million. This'll be simple. No, it won't. Fischer looks at Cobb, unnerved. In your father's office, below the bookshelves, is his personal safe. We need the combination. I never noticed a safe. Doesn't mean you don't know the combination. Well, I don't. We have it on good authority that you do. Whose? Yusuf looks through Fischer's wallet. Eames is opening a hinged, 3-wing mirror. $500 this cost? What's inside? Cash, cards, ID, and this. Yusuf holds up a snapshot. The photo from Maurice Fischer's office. Young Robert holds his homemade pinwheel. His father blows on it. Eames takes it from Yusuf and studies it. Cobb enters. Eames hands him the snapshot. Useful? Cobb studies the snapshot. Eames examines himself in the hinged mirror from multiple angles. One by one, the myriad Eames reflections become Brownings. Cobb pockets the photo. You're on. You've got 1 hour. An hour? I was supposed to have all night to crack him. And Sato was supposed to keep his guts on the inside. You've got an hour. Get something we can use. Eames turns from the mirror as Browning. He glances at his watch and then screams, as if begging for mercy. Browning's cry reverberates, and Fischer looks up, concerned. What's that? Good authority. Another cry rings out. Fischer recognizes the voice. Uncle Peter, make them stop! The combination. I don't know it. Why would Browning tell us that you did? Let me talk to him. I'll find out. Cobb pushes Browning, Eames, bloody and bruised, into the room and forces him down next to Fischer. Cobb handcuffs Browning's wrist to a metal jacket on the side of the sink. You've got an hour. Get talking. Cobb leaves. They've had me for 2 days. They've got someone with access to your father's office, and they're trying to open his safe. They thought I would know the combination, but I don't." "Neither do I, Uncle Peter." Confused, "Maurice told me that after he passed, only you would be able to open it." "He never gave me the combination." Browning thinks for a moment and realizes something. "He did. He just didn't tell you that it was a combination." "What then?" "Something only you would know. Some meaningful combination of numbers from your experiences with Maurice." "We didn't have a lot of meaningful experiences together." "Perhaps after your mother died." "After my mother died, I went to him in my grief. You know what he told me?" "There's really nothing to be said, Robert." "He always had a hard time with emotional—" "I was 11, Uncle Peter." Browning, Eames, takes this in. "He loved you, Robert, in his own way." "In his way? At the end, he called me to his deathbed. He could barely speak, but he took the trouble to say one last thing to me. He pulled me close, and I could make out only one word. Disappointed." Browning can say nothing. In the warehouse, Cobb pulls off his balaclava and looks down at Sato, who's breathing fast and shallow. "How's he doing?" "He's in a lot of pain." Cobb takes Sato's hand and looks him in the eye. "When we get you down to the next level, the pain will be less intense." Sato nods, breathing hard. "And if he dies?" "His conscious mind will drop out of the dream. He'll be trapped in limbo for a lifetime." "What will that do to him?" Cobb looks at her gravely. "When he wakes, his mind could be completely gone." "When we wake, I will still honor our arrangement." Cobb looks down at Sato sadly. "Sato-san, when you wake, you might not even remember that we had an arrangement. You'll have forgotten this world. Limbo will be your reality. Lost there for so long, you'll have become an old man. Filled with regret? Waiting to die alone. Yes. Then I'll take the chance and come back. We'll be young men together again." Sato smiles weakly. Cobb nods at him and turns to Ariadne. "When were you trapped in limbo?" Cobb says nothing. Ariadne pulls him away from Sato. "Cobb, you might have convinced the rest of this team to carry on with the job, but they don't know the truth." "What truth?" "The truth that at any minute you could bring a freight train through the wall. The truth that Mal is bursting up through your subconscious. The truth that as we go deeper into Fischer, we're also going deeper into you. And I'm not sure we're going to like what we find there." Cobb stares back at Ariadne, saying nothing. "This is not just about Fischer, it's about you. Tell me what happened to you and Mal, trapped in limbo." Cobb looks at her, thinking it through. "We were on a job, exploring dreams within dreams. But we didn't understand that your mind can turn hours into years, how you can get trapped so deep that when you wash up on the shore of your subconscious." We insert a cut of Mal lying on the sand, staring up at a cloudless sky, waves washing over her. You can lose track of what's real. "How long were you stuck?" Cobb pauses before he answers and looks at Ariadne. 50 years. Ariadne stares at him incredulous. "How did you stand it?" Cobb and Mal built a sandcastle on the beach. We created a whole world for ourselves. It's not so bad at first, being gods. The problem is knowing that it's not real. It became impossible for me to live like that. But not for her. She accepted it at some point. Inside of Mal's childhood home, Mal opens a dollhouse. Inside is a safe. She opens it, but it's empty. She pulls out her spinning top. She decided to forget that our world wasn't real. Mal places the top inside the safe and locks it away. And when you finally woke up? To wake from that, from decades lived, To be old souls thrown back into youth? It was hard. At first, Mal seemed okay, but I started to realize something was wrong. Finally, she admitted it. This idea she was possessed by. This simple little idea that changed everything. What was it? That our world was not real. No matter what I did, no matter what I said, she was convinced that we were still in a dream, that we needed to wake up again. Cobb is trying to calm Mal, who is hysterical. That to get home, we'd have to kill ourselves. Ariadne looks at Cobb, appalled. What about your children? Cobb has to look away. She believed they weren't real, that our real children were waiting somewhere above. Mal shakes her head at Cobb as she ushers the children out of the room, faces unseen. Calm down, Mal. They're projections, Dom, your dreams. I'm their mother. Don't you think I can tell the difference? Cobb closes the door and turns to her, eyes full of bitter tears. If it's my dream, then why can't I control it? Why can't I stop this? You don't know you're dreaming. It's obvious. You keep telling me that I am, and you still don't believe me. She was certain, but she loved me too much to go without me, so she made a plan. Cobb walks along, checking door numbers against a key. For our anniversary. Cobb enters the lavish suite. He notices the disheveled bedcloths. He steps forward. Smash. He has tipped over a champagne glass with his foot. Dinner for two is spread across the floor. He looks at the debris, confused. Next to the broken glass is a spinning top. He picks it up, studying it, thinking. He feels a draft and looks up to the window. The curtain billows. Cobb looks out at the window. Mal is sitting on the ledge of the opposite window, hair blowing, feet dangling over the dizzying high atrium. She smiles. Join me. Mal, come back inside. No, I'm going to jump, and you're coming with me. No, I'm not. This is real. If you jump, you're not going to wake up. You're going to die. Let's go, please. Back inside, and we'll talk about this. Please. We have talked enough. She kicks off a shoe and watches it drop. Come out onto the ledge, or I'll jump right now. She means it. Cobb swings his legs out, sitting on the ledge opposite his wife. He looks down at the drop. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith. I can't do that, Mal. I can't leave our children. If I go without you, they'll take them away anyway. What do you mean? I filed a letter with our attorney, explaining how I'm fearful for my safety, how you've threatened to kill me. Cobb looks back at the wrecked hotel suite and panics. I love you, Dom. I've freed you from the guilt of choosing to leave them. We're going home to our real children. Our children are here, Mal. Mal closes her eyes. Cobb looks for some way to reach her. You're waiting for a train. No, Mal, no, I can't. A train that will take you far away. Don't do this. You know where you hope this train will take you, but you can't know for sure. Don't! But it doesn't matter. No! Because you'll be together. Mal slips forward into space. Cobb screams after her, then tries to bury his face in the wall. Back in the warehouse, Cobb stares as he remembers. The letter to the authorities refuted all the claims about her sanity that she knew I would make. Cobb stands with the thin man who has the piece of paper in his kitchen. She had had herself declared sane by 3 different psychiatrists. Cobb hears a shout and turns to the garden. James crouches. Philippa joins him, examining the ground, faces unseen. It was impossible for me to explain the nature of her madness. The thin man thrusts the paper into Cobb's hand. Right now or never, Cobb. Cobb turns back to the window, about to call out. James and Philippa run off. Cobb turns from the window, looks at the paper in his hand. It is an airplane ticket. So I ran, and I've been running ever since, trying to buy my way back to my family. Cobb looks across at Ariadne. Psychiatrists judged her sane? She was sane. She was just lost in the labyrinth. Then why do you blame yourself? Because we were a family, and we had a life I would do anything to get back to now. But that reality wasn't enough for me then. It must have been your idea to push the limits, Cobb, but you're not responsible for the idea that destroyed her. That was her own idea from her own mind. Cobb says nothing. Your guilt defines her. It powers her. If we're going to succeed in this, you're going to have to forgive yourself, and you're going to have to confront her, but you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do this for me. I'm doing it for the others. They don't know the risk they've taken coming in here with you. Cobb looks at the rooftop opposite. He sees a sniper take up a position. Cobb shakes his head, frustrated. We can't stay here. Arthur? Browning puts his hand on Fischer's shoulder. These people are going to kill us if we don't give them the combination. They won't. They'll try to ransom us. I heard them. They're going to lock us in and run the van into the river. What's in the safe? Something for you. Maurice always said it was his most precious gift. A will. Maurice's will is with Port and Dunn. It's an alternate. It supersedes the other, only if you want it to. What does it say? It splits all the component businesses of Fischer Morrow into individual companies, transferring ownership to the boards of those companies. Leaving me nothing? A basic living, nothing more. The entire empire would cease to exist. Destroy my inheritance? Why would he suggest such a thing? I don't know, Robert. Cobb opens the door. Arthur is behind him. Come to your senses? Let us go. I don't know the combination. Not consciously. Cobb considers this and opens his phone. He pulls out his gun. Let's try instinctively. I have someone standing in your father's office, ready to tap in a combination. He holds the phone to Fischer's mouth. First 6 numbers that come into your head. Right now. I have no idea. Cobb swings the gun onto Browning. Right now! 528491. Cobb lowers his weapon. He listens to the phone, shakes his head, and shuts it. You'll have to do better. Bag 'em. Arthur puts sacks over their head. Cobb and Arthur drag Fischer and Browning to the van. We're worth much more to you alive. Arthur places Fischer on the back seat and uses a dropper to drop liquid onto Fischer's mask. His head slumps forward. Browning yanks the sack from his head, but it is now Eames. His relationship with his father's much worse than we thought. That'll help us? Arthur pulls a sniper rifle from a case by the van. The stronger the issues, the more powerful the catharsis. Cobb motions for Yusuf to follow him upstairs. But how do you reconcile them if they're that estranged? I'm working on that. Arthur lines up a shot through the window. Well, work fast. Fischer's projections are closing in quick. We need to break out of here before we're totally boxed in. Arthur shoots 2 snipers. Cobb and Yusuf gently load Sato into the van. He groans. Ariadne straps him in and checks his bandages. Arthur can't get the last sniper. He's too hidden behind a wall. Shouldn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, Arthur. Eames lines up a shot with a grenade launcher and fires. The sniper explodes into the air, and Arthur looks at Eames. Shall we? They climb into the van. The van pulls out into the rain-drenched streets. Arthur opens the mechanism case and hands out tubes. Shifting Fischer's antipathy from his father onto Browning should work. We need the imagery, the words. So you destroy his one positive relationship? No, we repair his relationship with his father and expose his godfather's true nature. Hell, we should be charging Fischer as much as Saito. What about his security? It's going to get worse as we go deeper. We bring in Mr. Charles. No! Who's Mr. Charles? A bad idea. Arthur, the second we approach Fischer in that hotel, they're going to mow us down. We run with Mr. Charles, like on the Steen job. So, you've done it before? Sure, but it didn't work. The subject realized he was dreaming, and his subconscious tore us to pieces. Eames takes this in. You learned a lot though, right? I'll need a decoy. No problem. How about a pretty young lady I've used before? Fine. Cobb looks back. A second SUV pulls out, tailing them. Cobb to Yusuf. I know you've got to stay ahead of them, but drive with kids' gloves, okay? The world down there is going to be very unstable. And don't make the jump too soon. That kick is our only way back. We have to be ready to catch it. I'll use the music to let you know when it's coming, but the rest is up to you. Arthur puts the mechanism onto the front seat. Everyone ready? Nods all around. Sweet dreams. Yusuf hits a button, and we are in a hotel lobby bar. Fischer is nursing a drink, staring at the ice cracking. Am I boring you? Fischer looks up. A beautiful blonde is next to him. I was telling you my story. I guess it wasn't to your liking. I have a lot on my mind. Fischer looks around the bar. There are several stern-looking characters, paying him too much attention. Arthur and Ariadne sit at a table across the lobby. They spot Cobb moving across the lobby toward Fischer. And there goes Mr. Charles. Who or what exactly is Mr. Charles? It's a gambit designed to turn Fischer against his own subconscious. Cobb approaches the bar, watched closely by Fischer's sub-security. Mr. Fischer, good to see you again. Rod Green, marketing. And you must be leaving. She presses against Fischer as she slides off her stool and deposits a cocktail napkin in front of him. In case you get bored. Cobb watches her walk away. The sub-security follows her. I think you just got blown off. Unless her phone number really does have only 6 digits. Fischer glances at the napkin. 528491. Arthur watches the sub-security following the blonde. And why didn't you approve? Because it involves telling the mark that he's dreaming, which involves attracting a lot of attention to us. Didn't Cobb say never to do that? You must have noticed by now how much time Cobb spends doing things he says never to do. Cobb turns to Fischer. Strange way to make friends. Lifting your wallet, I mean. Fischer pats his pocket. It's empty. He looks to the lobby where he sees the sub-security trailing the blonde. God damn it. The wallet alone is worth $500. I know. Don't worry, my guys are on it. Who did you say you were? Fischer looks at him curious. Cobb plows on confidently. I said I was Rod Green from marketing, but I'm not. My name is Mr. Charles. I might seem familiar to you. I'm in charge of your security here. The blonde hurries up to Saito, emerging from the elevator. Mr. Saito, can I have a minute? She pushes him back in the elevator, closing the door as the sub-security approaches. The blonde fondles Sato's lapels, getting close. I'm sorry, but... Saito glances over her shoulder to see, in the tunnel of infinite reflections created by the elevator's opposing mirrors, 3 reflections in, the blonde is Eames. He winks. Saito pushes him away. Very amusing, Mr. Eames. You look a little perkier. A shudder ripples through the elevator. Turbulence on the plane. Feels closer. That's Yusuf's driving. And we cut to Yusuf fighting the wheel, as the van cuts down an alley, bumping over potholes and smashing trash cans aside. 3 SUVs in furious pursuit. Yusuf looks in the rearview mirror, frustrated. He checks his watch and then checks back. The sleepers shake with the impact. A tremor echoes through the bar. Fischer looks at Cobb, trying to place him. Security? You work for the hotel? No. My specialty is subconscious security. You're talking about dreams? You're talking about extraction. Exactly. My job is to protect you. Behind Fischer, a waiter puts down a tray, tipping a champagne glass over. Cobb notices. Pauses. Looking across the bar, his 2 children are crouched, backing towards us. Cobb looks around the bar, and the patrons start to stare at Cobb, suspicious. Cobb shifts back to Fischer. My job is to protect you from any attempt to access your mind through your dream. Cobb regains his patter. The patrons lose interest. Eames pulls out Fischer's wallet and moves to hand it to Sato, then pauses and opens it. He leafs past the cast to find the snapshot of young Robert holding his homemade pinwheel, his father blowing on it. The elevator doors open and Eames steps off. He hands Sato the wallet. Get off at a different floor and keep moving. Dump the wallet and meet me in the lobby. The security will try to track it down. We need to buy Cobb a little bit more time. The doors close and Sato puts the wallet in his pocket. He coughs a deep, nasty cough. Cobb looks over Fischer's shoulder in the lobby, sees a suited man watching him. Another one is walking in from the lobby. You're not safe here. Cobb steps away from the bar, but Fischer doesn't move. Trust me, they're coming for you. Fischer sizes him up. A clap of thunder echoes. Inside the van, gunshots blast out the rear and side windows. A security man is leaning out of the lead SUV with a shotgun. Wind and rain rip through the van. In the back, Arthur's sleeping face is whipped by the spray. Fischer looks out the window at sudden hurricane-like rain. Strange weather, huh? A tremor runs through the bar. Cobb looks around. You feel that? Ariadne and Arthur watch the gusts of wind rattle the windows. Arthur sees hotel guests staring at the weather, puzzled. Several of them turn and look directly at Arthur. What's happening? Cobb's drawing Fischer's attention to the strangeness of the dream. That's making his subconscious look for the dreamer. For me. We cut to at the end of the alley. Yusuf throws the van into a hard right turn. We move into extreme slow motion. The sleepers are in the back. They're drawn to one side of the van by centrifugal force. The liquid in Fischer's drink in the hotel lobby rises up against one side of the glass. Fischer notices, confused. Very odd, the weather, the gravity. Fischer looks around the bar. It's as if the entire room is set at a 45-degree angle. Glasses are sliding off tables. And I can explain all this. You've actually been trained for this. Fischer nods. Think of the strangeness of the weather, the shifts in gravity. None of this is real. We are in a dream. Fischer looks at the room around them and back to Cobb. All through the bar, patrons turn and look at Cobb in unison. The simplest test of what I'm saying is for you to try and remember anything about the way you arrived in this hotel, okay? Fischer stares at Cobb, trying to process this. All around them, people stare at Cobb. Several get up as if to approach. Breathe. Remember the training. Accept the fact that we're in a dream. That's why I'm here, to protect you. As Fischer considers this, Yusuf straightens up the van, racing down the street, swerving through traffic. In the hotel lobby bar, the building gradually eases back into alignment. So, you're not real? The bar patrons start to ignore Cobb again. No, I'm a projection of your subconscious. I was put in place to protect you in the event that extractors pulled you into a dream. I believe that is what just happened. Fischer takes this in, then looks at the security men approaching across the crooked floor. He nods at Cobb. Cobb escorts Fischer across the lobby. As he does so, he walks past the two children, backs to us. Cobb ignores them. The two sub-security fall in behind. Cobb hurries Fischer up the stairs and then pushes him into the bathroom. Fischer stumbles in, turns to Cobb, angry. Hey! Cobb reaches into his jacket. The first man bursts in. Cobb kicks him to the ground and draws his gun as the second man comes through the door, moving toward Fischer. Blam! Cobb blasts the second man in the back, turns and shoots the first man. Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Cobb turns to Fischer, calm and convincing. Look at the gun in his hand. Fischer looks. The second man was holding a pistol. Cobb opens the first man's jacket to show Fischer his holster and sidearm. These men were sent to abduct you. Cobb pulls out the gun and hands it to Fischer. If I'm going to help you, I need you to be calm. Fischer remembers something. If this is a dream, I have to kill myself to wake up. Fischer raises the gun towards his head. I wouldn't do that. They've probably got you sedated. If you pull that trigger, you might not wake up. You might drop into a lower dream state. Mr. Fischer, you know all this. You just have to remember it. Fischer lowers his gun. Sato walks down the corridor, followed by a security man. Sato ducks around the corner, moves to a garbage chute, and drops Fischer's wallet into it. He slips into the stairwell as the security man comes abreast of the chute and pauses. Arthur leads Ariadne to a particular room, 491. Arthur leads Ariadne in. He opens the closet, opens the room safe, and pulls out 4 bricks of plastic explosive. So, if everything is correct, this room should be directly below 528. Cobb looks reassuringly at Fischer. What do you remember from before this dream? Fischer thinking. Rain, gunfire, Uncle Peter. Christ, we've been kidnapped. Where were they holding you? They had us in the back of a van. Your body is bouncing around in the back of a van right now. That explains the gravity shifts. It was to do with a safe. Christ, why is it so hard to remember? It's like trying to remember a dream after you've woken up. It takes years of practice to do it easily. So, you and Browning have been pulled into this dream so they can steal something from your mind. What? They wanted a combination to a safe. They demanded the first numbers that popped into my head. That is them extracting a locator. A locator? A number from your own subconscious. It can be used any number of ways. This is a hotel. Room numbers. What was the number you gave them? 52 something? It was a long number. 52, 528, 4 something? Cobb opens his phone. Well, we know where to start. 5th floor. Arthur hangs up the phone. He's standing on a chair, attaching the explosives to the ceiling. Do you use a timer? No, I have to judge it myself. Once you're all asleep up in room 528, I'll wait until Yusuf starts his kick. How will you know? His music warns me it's coming. Then the van hitting the barrier or the bridge should be unmistakable. That's when I blow the floor out from underneath us, and we get a nice synchronized kick. Too soon and we won't get pulled out. Too late and I won't be able to drop us. Why not? The van will be in free fall. I can't drop us with no gravity. Arthur finishes setting the charges. Sato moves through the lobby. Browning is coming in the other direction. Sato assumes him to be Eames. I see you've changed. I'm sorry? Eames comes up from behind Browning, catching Sato's eye. I'm sorry. I mistook you for a friend. Good-looking fellow, I'm sure. Browning moves off and Sato approaches Eames. That's Fischer's projection of Browning. We'll keep an eye on how he behaves. Why? How he acts will tell us if Fischer is starting to suspect his motives the way we want him to. Cobb leads Fischer around a corner. Arthur and Ariadne are waiting in the corridor. They work for me. Fischer starts looking at room numbers, stops at 528. Cobb draws his gun, steps back from the door, and kicks it open. Cobb jumps into the room, gun up. But the room is empty. Arthur and Ariadne search the room. Sato and Eames arrive. Eames shuts the door, and Arthur finds something. Mr. Charles! Arthur holds up a mechanism case. Cobb shows it to Fischer. Do you know what this is? Fischer's eyes roam over the dials and plungers. I think so, but I don't understand. They were going to put you under. I'm already under. Under again. A dream within a dream? Shh! Arthur is at the door, and someone is there. A key goes into the lock. The door starts to open. Arthur reaches over and grabs the person entering, throws them to the floor, and puts his gun in their face. It's Browning. Fischer stares, disbelieving at his own godfather. Uncle Peter, what's going on? Cobb pulls the key from Browning's hand. Room 528. You said you were kidnapped together? Not exactly. They already had him and they'd been torturing him. You saw them torture him? Fischer shakes his head and looks at Browning, thinking. The kidnappers are working for you? No, Robert. You're trying to get that safe open, to get the alternate will. Browning looks up at Fischer. Fischer Morrow's been my entire life. I can't let you destroy it. I'm going to throw away my inheritance? Why would I? I couldn't take the chance of you rising to your father's final taunt. What taunt? That will. I'm sorry, Robert, but it's his final insult. A challenge to build something for yourself. He's telling you that you aren't worthy of his accomplishments. Fischer takes this in, devastated. That he was disappointed? I'm so sorry, but he was wrong. You'll make his company even greater than he ever could. Your godfather is lying, Robert. Fischer turns to Cobb. How do you know? It's what I do. He's hiding something. Cobb looks at Browning. Let's find out what. Cobb nods at Arthur, who starts unpacking the mechanism. Browning watches, silent. Let's do to him what he was going to do to you. Cobb rolls up his sleeve and nods at Fischer to do the same. We'll penetrate his subconscious and find out what he doesn't want you to know. Fischer looks Cobb in the eye and decides. He rolls up his sleeve, offering his bare arm. The team run tubes to each other. Arthur injects Fischer, whose head slumps. He's out. Wait, Cobb, I'm lost. Whose subconscious are we going into? Fischer's. I told him it was Browning's, so he'd come with us as a part of our team. Arthur is impressed. He's going to help us break into his own subconscious. That's the idea. He'll think that his security is Browning's and fight them to learn the truth about his father. Arthur hits buttons on the mechanism. The team goes out one by one. Cobb is last. Fischer's subconscious is going to run you down hard. I'll lead them on a merry chase. Be back in time for the kick. I'm on it. Cobb is no longer listening. He stares at the net curtains, billowing like those in Mal's suite. A glimpse of someone. Maybe it's Mal? As the screen goes white, we are in snow-covered mountains, close on Cobb's face, staring fixed. Cobb! Cobb! Ariadne is beside him. They stand on a cliff, dressed in white snowsuits, carrying white painted weapons like World War II commandos. Cobb checks his sniper rifle, examines their objective. A massive fortified medical facility a mile below. What's down there? Hopefully, the truth we want Fischer to learn. I mean, what's down there for you? Cobb turns to her. Eames, Sato, and Fischer arrive, skiing down from the hill above. Cobb pulls Eames out of Fischer's earshot. "You're the dreamer. I need you to draw the security away from the complex." "Then who guides Fischer in? You?" "If I know the route, we could be compromised." Eames looks at Cobb, uneasy. Ariadne comes over. "I designed the place." "No, you're with me." "I could do it." They turn to Sato. Sato shrugs at Eames. Eames smiles. "Eames, brief Sato on the route into the complex. What we're looking for is going to be in the most heavily fortified section, that north tower." Cobb moves to Fischer and Sato coughs and spits. Eames sees blood in the snow. He looks at Sato. "Mr. Fischer, you're going in with Mr. Sato." "You're not coming in?" "You have to do this on your own. You have to get in there, break into your godfather's mind, and find out the truth about your father." Cobb taps Fischer's radio mic. "Keep this live at all times. I'll be listening, covering you." He holds up a sniper rifle. "The windows on the upper floors are big enough that I can cover you from that south tower." Cobb slips into skis and shoulders his rifle. Arthur checks the mechanism in room 528. He hears low booms like thunder. He checks his watch. The second hand crawls forward. With a last look at the sleepers, he heads out into the corridor. A gunshot slams into the van as Yusuf drives. He glances back to see a motorcycle pulling up behind him. The rear passenger fires a shotgun. The bike pulls alongside Yusuf's window. As the passenger reloads, Yusuf yanks the wheel toward the bike, bringing the shotgun barrel into the cab so he can grab it. He spins the wheel back, pulling the passenger from the back of the bike. Yusuf turns a corner, heading into a disused market. In the hotel, Arthur walks toward the elevator. It opens. A security man emerges, headed right for him. Arthur takes a turn, speeding up. The booms get louder. Back in the van, the bike crosses between the van, catching up again as the driver pulls a handgun and starts blasting. Up ahead, an SUV sits in a side road, lining up to head off the van. The security man driving the SUV guns it. As the bike creeps up on the other side, Yusuf hits the brakes, forcing the bike into the path of the SUV, tossing the rider like a rag doll. Heading out of the market, the van races onto a freeway on a ramp, approaching the bridge. An SUV smashes into the van's side, forcing it up against the barrier. The van starts to slowly tilt over the barrier, and the SUV pushes. As Arthur hurries down the corridor starts to tilt, and Arthur is forced to run up the wall. He rounds a corner and straight into another security man. Arthur headbutts him, and they struggle. The corridor spins around as they struggle, throwing them up onto the walls, the ceiling, as the wall becomes floor. They drop through a door, into a hotel room where the fight continues all over the spinning room. The sleeping Arthur bounces around as the van tilts, scraping along the barrier. The van clears the end of the barrier and rolls down the embankment. Arthur and the security man drop to the floor, Arthur on top. Arthur gets up and heads to the stairwell. The van settles with a thump. Yusuf breathes hard, then smiles as he realizes he is in one piece. A ringing bell up ahead makes him look to the bridge, where the barriers are starting to come down. Yusuf checks his watch. Bugger! Yusuf hits the gas, headed for the bridge. An SUV lines up behind him, trying to catch up before the van crosses the barrier onto the bridge. The van just makes it. The SUV behind rips its rear axle off, scraping to a halt on the rising section. The security man inside starts firing on the van. Arthur races down the steps of the hotel, opens the door to the 4th floor, and spots security men outside 491. Hey! They turn. He darts back into the stairwell, races down the stairs. The security men follow. They start shooting. On the snow-covered mountains, Eames skis down within sight of the hospital complex. He reaches into his pack and lets off a flare. Security men on the ramparts spot the flare and send patrols out on skis and snowmobiles to investigate. Eames watches them closely, then launches himself down the mountain, streaking across the icy slope. In the van, Yusuf pulls forward, looking over his shoulder to line up the backwards run at the edge. He ducks as vicious fire from the SUV hammers the vehicle. He looks at his watch, the second hand ticking slowly and ticking slowly. "Sod it, I hope you're ready." He grabs an MP3 player and reaches into the back to place headphones on the sleeping Arthur's head. As he does so, he notices Sato's bandage bleeding through. Yusuf hits play on Edith Piaf's Non, je ne regrette rien. It starts up. Arthur suddenly stops, hearing something. Massive low-end musical tones. He looks panicked. "No, Yusuf! Too soon!" Shots slam into the stairs around him. We cut to Cobb and Ariadne making their way toward the complex. Over his radio, we hear Eames. "Cobb, are you hearing that?" Cobb listens. The wind sounds unusually low. Eames is hidden at the base of some trees, whispering, as a patrol passes beneath his position. "I noticed it 20 minutes ago. At first I thought it was just wind." Cobb is listening intently. The wind changes pitch. "No, it's music. Damn it. What do we do?" We move fast. "Sato, do you copy?" Sato and Fischer climb down a cliff face above the complex. "We are going as fast as we can." Ariadne looks at Cobb, concerned. "How long do we have?" Yusuf's about 10 seconds from the jump, which gives Arthur about 3 minutes, which gives us about 60 minutes. "The route you gave them, can you do it in under an hour?" "I don't think so. They've still got to climb down to the middle terrace." "They need a new route, a direct route." "The building is designed as a labyrinth. There must be access routes that cut through the maze." "Eames?" Eames cannot answer. He slaloms through the forest, sub-security in hot pursuit, bullets smashing into the trunks. Cobb turns back to Ariadne. "Did Eames add any features?" "Yes." "What did he add?" Ariadne looks at Cobb. "I shouldn't tell you. If Mal..." "There's no time. What did he add? Utility closets? Trapdoors? What about service features? Did he add any large pipes or..." "Ducts. He added an air duct system. It doesn't follow the maze. They can use it to go straight from the outer walls to the upper tower." "Explain it to them." Into the radio. "Sato?" Sato is using a hammer to tap in a belay. "Go ahead." Yusuf looks at the security man in the SUV, gives him the finger, and hits the gas, racing backwards at the barrier. Arthur runs up the stairs of the hotel, gun in hand, rounds a corner, and impossibly arrives behind the security man, who looks at him confused, then looks down, to realize he's now at the edge of a dangerous drop. Arthur shrugs. Paradox. Arthur pushes him over the edge, and he falls. Arthur races up the 4th floor. He throws open the door, and we cut to the van in slow motion, smashing through the concrete barrier. We cut again to Arthur sprinting down the corridor, when a tremendous crash sends him flying into the air. A massive rumble prompts Cobb to look across the valley. Eames shoots out of the trees, then falls to the snow as he sees a great cracking up ahead. The slope is falling away in an avalanche. Sato hears the rumble above them. He looks down. Fischer is below, near the bottom of a sheer face. "Look out!" Sato cups the rope and they fall. They hit the icy face and slide down the slope, clearing the path of the avalanche. In extreme slow motion, the van emerges from the concrete balustrade and starts falling. Arthur is still flying through the corridor, not landing. Gravity has disappeared. He scrambles for a handhold, grabbing a sconce. Cobb watches the avalanche clouds slide past the complex. What was that? The kick. Cobb, did we miss it? Yeah, we missed it. Eames is lying on the snow. What the hell do we do now? Finish the job before the next kick. What next kick? Cobb looks at Ariadne as he talks into the radio. When the van hits the water, I figure Arthur's got a couple minutes and we got about 20. Cobb and Ariadne move toward the base of the complex. Sato and Fischer run around the base of the building. They find a large exhaust port. Laying a charge on the grill, they blow the charge. They climb into the open vent. In extreme slow motion, the van seems suspended in midair, 10 stories above the river. In zero gravity, Arthur pulls himself to the door of 491 and opens it. He looks at the charges planted on the ceiling. How the hell do I drop you? He pulls the charges from the ceiling, hurrying. Sato and Fischer hurry through the duct system. Sato is falling behind, coughing up blood. Cobb grabs a security guard from behind, strangling him unconscious. He beckons to Ariadne, covering her as she runs toward him. They enter the base of the South Tower. A guard is manning the tower. Cobb and Ariadne enter. Cobb shoots the guard and moves to the window. Ariadne points. That's the antechamber outside the strong room. Cobb looks at the large windows of the antechamber. What about the strong room? Doesn't it have any windows? Wouldn't be very strong if it did. Look, if you wanted to design it yourself, it's fine. Better hope that we like what Fischer finds in there. Cobb sets up his sniper rifle. Through the scope, he can see 3 guards on the balcony outside the chamber, 3 more inside. Cobb casually picks them off with his rifle. Ariadne watches through binoculars, appalled. These projections, they're part of his subconscious? Yeah. Are you destroying those parts of his mind? No, of course not. They're just projections. Cobb, something's wrong. Eames is watching the patrol head back toward the complex. They're headed your way, like they know something. Cobb hears this, concerned. Buy us some time. On my way. Eames takes off toward the base of the complex. Arthur is floating into the room. The sleepers are floating, loosely connected by their tubes. Arthur looks at them, mind racing. He pulls Cobb towards Eames. Sato and Fischer approach the gate, covering the exit to the anteroom. Sato slumps to the floor of the duct, pulls out his radio. Fischer looks at him. He's pale and shivering. Fischer takes the radio and whispers into it. We are here. Are we clear to proceed? Cobb scans the anteroom through the scope. It looks clear. You're clear, but hurry. There's an army headed your way. Ariadne watches the patrols approaching the complex. The squelch from the radio is too loud. Fischer grabs it and turns the volume to 0 as he starts to remove the grate. Eames is setting mines along the lowest wall of the structure. He moves carefully there. There's a sheer drop below the wall. Cobb spots something through his scope, something above the main windows, glimpsed through the side of the skylight. Shit, there's someone else in there. Cobb prepares to fire. Ariadne grabs the radio. Fischer, stop! It's a trap! Fischer does not see the flashing light on his radio as he carefully lifts the grate. He motions for Sato to stay. Cobb tenses to fire. Come on, a little lower, a little Cobb freezes. It is Mal in his sights. Ariadne puts up her binoculars and spots Mal. Fischer is climbing out of the vent. Cobb, that's not really her. Cobb turns to her. How can you know that? Fischer moves into the antechamber, cautious. I'm in. Fischer turns up the volume. Fischer, look out! Mal drops gracefully to the floor behind him. Hello. Cobb looks at Ariadne. Cobb, she's just a projection. Fischer, he's real. Cobb thinks, nods, turns back to the scope, but too late. Mal shoots Fischer. Cobb reflexively pulls the trigger and Mal goes down. Cobb steps back from the scope, stunned. Eames, get to the anteroom now! They run for the door. Sato starts as they hear the shot. He starts edging forwards, clutching his belly. The sleepers are floating in a rough stack, top and tailed. Arthur pulls the bedding from the bed and uses the sheet to bind the sleepers together. In extreme slow motion, the van creeps downward, still high above the river. Arthur pushes the floating stack of sleepers to the elevator. He hits the button and the doors open. He pushes them in and grabs the charges, climbs through the hatch in the ceiling. Eames steps over Sato in the hospital complex, who looks up at him with dying eyes. Eames jumps out of the vent to find Cobb and Ariadne standing over the bodies of Fischer and Mal. What happened? Mal killed Fischer. I wouldn't shoot her. Eames grabs a defibrillator from the wall and pulls Fischer's jacket open. It won't do any good. Eames shocks Fischer's chest. Even if you could retrieve his body, his mind is down there. It's over. Eames listens for a pulse and looks up at Cobb. So that's it then? We failed? I'm sorry. It's you who doesn't get to go back to your family. Eames looks down at Fischer and then over to the double doors. I wanted to know what was going to happen in there. I think we had this one. There's still a way. We follow Fischer down. They look at her. We're almost out of time. Down there'll be enough time. We'll find him. Arthur's music will start. You'll use the defibrillator to revive him. We get him his own early kick from below. Get him in there. She points to some doors. Then, as the music ends, you blow the hospital, and we all ride the kick back up through the layers. Eames looks at her and then to Cobb. Okay, Sato can hold them off while I plant the rest of the charges. Sato's not going to last, Eames. We have to try. Go for it, but I'm taking the kick whether you back or not. Eames pulls the mechanism from his pack. He offers it to Ariadne. Cobb watches, silent. Ariadne pulls out the tubes. Can I trust you to do what's needed? Mal is down there. And I can find her. She'll have Fischer. How do you know? She wants me to come after him. She wants me back down there with her. Cobb rolls up his sleeve, and Ariadne rolls up her sleeve. Eames nods. Cobb and Ariadne lie down. Eames hits the button. Water, bubbles, drowning. Ariadne lies in the surf, staring up at a cloudless sky. A tremendous boom prompts her to look around. Urban buildings piled right down to the water. The buildings are decaying, like a glacier. Cobb wades toward her through the shallow water. Ariadne looks up at the crumbling city around them. This is your world? It was. This is where she'll be. Arthur floats on top of the elevator, planting small charges on the emergency brakes and cable. He sets them and grabs the other explosives, then pushes away, shooting up the shaft. As he hits the detonator, blasting the braking and safety systems of the elevator, we move into slow motion, the fireballs flaming out in graceful licks. In the antechamber, Eames races around, full speed, getting the defibrillator paddles, laying them by Fischer's body. He runs into the duct and pulls Sato up to a seated position and hands him a handgun. Come on, Sato. I need you to cover Fischer while I plant the charges. Sato nods weakly, tries to hold the gun. Eames moves to the window and pulls his machine gun off, checks its load. It's ready. He watches the security patrols climb up the outer walls. Eames lays down a hail of covering fire, then heads outside. Eames races along the upper terrace, dodging fire. Bullets shatter a window behind him, and we move into slow motion, the glass cascading gently. Cobb and Ariadne climb out of the waves, full speed. They move into the shadow of the tall, crumbling buildings. The streets are eerily deserted. As they move further in, the buildings become newer and different. Ariadne marvels at the extraordinary collection of buildings, every architectural style imaginable, in waves of failed utopias. You built all this? We both did. It's incredible. We built for years. Then, when that got stale, we moved in on the memories. A child's shout echoes through the deserted canyons, prompting Cobb to look down a side street. A little blonde boy, crouched, his back to us. A little blonde girl joins the boy, and as Cobb turns down the street, they run off. Cobb and Ariadne emerge into a peculiar square lined with an eclectic mix of buildings, from apartment blocks to houses. This is our neighborhood. Confused. From what city? No, our neighborhood. That was our first apartment. Then we moved to that building. We got a small house when Ma became pregnant. You reconstructed them all from memory? We had time. Cobb pauses in front of a French country house, staring. What's that? The house Ma grew up in. Will she be in there? No. Come on. Cobb leads Ariadne to the entrance of a glass skyscraper. They walk across the gleaming lobby to the elevators. We both wanted a house, but we both loved skyscrapers. In the real world, we had to choose, but not here. Cobb pulls out his handgun and a Ziploc bag full of bullets. How do we send Fischer back? We need some kind of kick. What? I'll improvise. Cobb cocks his weapon and the elevator stops. The doors open. Ariadne moves to exit and Cobb stops her. There's something you have to understand about me. About Inception. You see, an idea is like a virus. Cobb leads her out of the lift. Cobb and Ariadne step off the lift and into the incongruous interior of a craftsman house. They cautiously move down the corridor toward the back of the house. Resilient, he turns to Ariadne, highly contagious, and an idea can grow. The smallest seed of an idea can grow to define or destroy your world. Cobb is staring into the kitchen. Mal is sitting at the table, back to them, staring out on the porch, the towers of limbo stretching off behind it. The smallest idea, such as, your world is not real. Cobb hands Ariadne his gun and moves toward Mal. A simple little thought that changes everything. Ariadne watches as Cobb sits down beside Mal. Back in the elevator shaft, Arthur flies back down to the top of the elevator and squeezes past the car. He starts to set main charges across the bottom of the car. Cobb touches Mal's arm. She turns angry. It is only now that we see that she holds a carving knife. Mal looks at Ariadne. So certain of your world, of what's real. Do you think he is? Points at Cobb. Or do you think he is as lost as I was? I know what's real. What are the distinguishing characteristics of a dream? Mutable laws of physics? Tell that to quantum physicists. Reappearance of the dead? What about heaven and hell? Persecution of the dreamer, the creator, the Messiah? They crucified Christ, didn't they? I know what's real. No creeping doubts? Not feeling persecuted, Dom? Chased around the globe by anonymous corporations and police forces? The way the projections persecute the dreamer? Mal puts her hand on his face, pitying. Admit it, Dom. You don't believe in one reality anymore. So choose. Choose your reality like I did. Choose to be here. Choose me. Cobb, rising in his anger. I have chosen Mal. Our children. I have to get back to them. Because you left them. You left us. You're wrong, Dom. You're confused. Our children are here. A child's shout draws Cobb. James crouches on the porch, back to us. Philippa joins him, also turned away. Cobb watches, moved. Mal leans in close. And you'd like to see their faces again, wouldn't you, Dom? Our real children are waiting for me up above. Arthur scrambles to arrange the sleepers on the floor of the car. As his hand comes away from Sato, he sees blood on it. He looks at Sato's belly. The blood is coming through his shirt. Arthur sticks headphones on a sleeping Eames. In the hospital fortress, Eames throws a grenade, blowing up the security forces trying to ascend the terrace. He ducks to the ground to avoid heavy fire. He starts unpacking the charges and setting them along the base of the terraces. Sato looks up as he hears a security guard climbing through the duct. He raises his gun, trembling with weakness. Mal laughs at Cobb. "Ha! Up above? Listen to yourself. You judged me for believing the very same thing." Mal points at the children. "These are our children. Watch. James, Philippa." The children start to turn to us, but Cobb closes his eyes. "They're not real, Mal. Our real children are waiting for us." The children run off. Cobb opens his eyes. "You keep telling yourself that, but you don't believe it." "I know it. And what if you're wrong? What if I'm what's real?" Cobb is silent. "You keep telling yourself what you know, but what do you believe? What do you feel?" Cobb looks at Mal, struggling. "Guilt. I feel guilt. And however confused I might get, however lost I might seem, it's always there, telling me something, reminding me of the truth." "What truth?" "That you were wrong to doubt our world. That the idea that drove you to question your reality was a lie." "How could you know it was a lie?" "Because it was my lie." Mal realizes. "Because you planted the idea in my mind?" "Because I performed Inception on my own wife and then reaped the bitter rewards." "Why?" "We'd become lost in there, living a world of infinite possibilities, a world where we were gods. I realized we needed to escape. But she'd locked away her knowledge of the unreality of this world." Mal opens the doghouse and takes the spinning top, lies it down in the safe and locks it away. "I couldn't make Mal understand that we needed to break free, to die, so I started to search our world." Cobb turns to Mal, but keeps talking to Ariadne. Cobb wanders through the streets of Limbo, searching for the right place in her mind. Cobb stops outside the Victorian house, Mal's childhood home. Looking up at it, he heads inside. "When I found that place, that secret place where she shut away her knowledge years before, I broke it open." Cobb looks around Mal's childhood bedroom and comes into the dollhouse. "I broke into the deepest recess of her mind to give her the simplest little idea." Cobb throws open the safe doors. Sitting on a shelf in the safe is a spinning top on its side. A truth that she had once known, but had chosen to forget. Cobb picks up the totem. He spins it in the safe. It spins and spins without end. Cobb closes the door of the safe. That her world was not real. Cobb and Mal arrive at train tracks cutting through wasteland. That death was a necessary escape. They lie on the tracks, looking in each other's eyes. Mal is crying. Cobb takes her hand, reassuring. He starts to speak. "You're waiting for a train that will take you far away. You know where you hope this train will take you, but you can't know for sure. Yet it doesn't matter. Mal looks at him across the railroad tracks and replies, "Because you'll be together." The train comes, obliterating the lovers. Back in the present, Cobb looks into Mal's eyes. She's crying. I never thought that the idea I'd plant would grow in her mind like a cancer. That even after we woke, Cobb looks around the hotel suite, confused. He moves to the curtain. Mal is on the ledge opposite. You'd continue to believe that your world was not real. Crying, Mal nods. That death was the only escape? Mal plunges to her death. You killed me! Cobb looks at Mal and whispers, I was trying to save you, I'm sorry. Mal comes in close to Cobb and looks him over. You infected my mind. You betrayed me. But you can make amends. You can still keep your promise. We can be together right here, in our world, the world that we built together. Arthur hits play on his music player in the elevator. Edith Piaf starts to ring out. Arthur checks his detonator. Eames races back in the antechamber. In a relative quiet, he notices massive, low musical notes. He drops his gun and goes to Fischer's side. Sato musters all of his remaining strength as the guard emerges. Sato fires, dropping the guard, then collapses. The gun clatters to the duct floor. Sato is dead. Eames powers up the defibrillator, puts the paddles on Fischer's chest, then, pow! He shocks him. Lightning crackles across the sky. Ariadne sees it. We need Fischer. You can't have him. Cobb stares at Mal, mesmerized. If I stay, can she take him back? Cobb, what are you saying? Fischer is on the porch. Cobb, you can't do this. Go check he's alive, Ariadne. Ariadne moves onto the porch, high above the metropolis. Arthur nods his head in time with the music in the elevator, counting down, holding the detonator. He starts bracing himself. Eames recharges the defibrillator and shocks Fischer again. Ariadne looks up as a large bolt of lightning rips across the sky. She looks down to see Fischer, bound and bloody, lying below the rail. He's here, and it's time, but you have to come with us. Another massive lightning strike flickers across the sky. Cobb, I'm not going to let you lose yourself in here. You have to get back to your children. Send Fischer, I have to stay. You can't stay here to be with her. Cobb turns from Mal and looks at Ariadne. I'm not. Sato's dead by now. That means he's here. I have to stay here and find him. Ariadne removes Fischer's gag, pulls him up onto the rail. Cobb looks back at Mal. I can't stay here to be with her because she's not real. Mal looks at Cobb, furious. Not real? I'm the only thing you do believe in anymore. Here, doesn't this feel real, Dom? She stabs him in the chest. Cobb wheezes, gasping, looking at Mal. I wish you were here, but I couldn't make you real. I'm not capable of imagining you in all of your complexity and perfection, and you really were. You're the best I can do, and you're not real. Mal pulls the knife and moves to strike again. No! A shot rings out, and Mal grabs her shoulder. Cobb turns to Ariadne, who's pointing Cobb's gun. What are you doing? Improvising. She kicks Fischer off the roof, aims again at Mal. Fischer drops as the sky lightens up with electricity. Fischer screams and then gasps, no longer falling. Eames pulls the defibrillator from Fischer's chest as he coughs awake. Get in here, quick! Fischer looks up at the double doors and staggers to his feet. Fischer pushes open the doors to the strong room. Fischer walks into the silent white room. At one end of the room is a bed. A figure lies in the bed. His father. Breathing with tremendous difficulty. He's dying. Ariadne takes aim at Mal. No! Cobb holds Ariadne's gaze and she lowers the gun. Eames grabs the detonator, then moves to the door of the strong room. Arthur hits the detonator in the elevator. The charges on the bottom explode, and we move into extreme slow motion as the flames balloon. In the strong room, a rumble builds as Fischer approaches the bed, overcome with emotion. His father sees him and starts trying to speak. Fischer leans in. I was... I know, Dad. You were disappointed that I couldn't be you. The dying man shakes his head with surprising energy. I was disappointed that you tried. Fischer hears this. The elevator car is now rocketing along its track by the explosion. Arthur is smashed against the floor of the car next to the sleepers, who shudder with the force of acceleration. Eames watches Fischer in the antechamber. Come on, come on. The father collapses back onto the pillow, and Fischer starts to weep. His father reaches out a trembling hand, but when Fischer tries to hold it, he shakes his son's hand away. He's reaching for the safe next to his bed. His fingers fumble at the keypad, but he can't open it. His son pushes 528491 into the keypad and opens it. Inside the safe is the will, and beside it is a homemade pinwheel, clearly made by a child, by Fischer. He takes it out, marveling at it. He turns to his father, but his father is dead. Eames, watching from the door, hits the detonator. A line of explosions rip along the lower wall of the hospital complex. The entire building starts to slide down the mountain. In Limbo, a fierce wind starts howling through the house as the sky outside darkens. Cobb shields Mal against the blast, looks up at Ariadne, who holds the railing, fighting the wind. That's the kick, you have to go. You're coming. No, I'm not. I'm staying here to find Sato. Turns to Mal, and to say goodbye. Ariadne loses her grip on the railing. Don't lose yourself. Find Sato and bring him back. I will. Ariadne lets the wind pull her off the edge, falling. Ariadne drops as the floor collapses and her eyes snap open in the antechamber. Cobb holds Mal in his arms and the wind dies. We'd be together forever. You promised me. I know, but we can't, and I'm sorry. You remember when you asked me to marry you? You said you dreamed that we would grow old together. And we did. Mal looks at Cobb, thinking, remembering. Two elderly people, Mal and Cobb, walk through Limbo across a wasteland. Two elderly hands clutch each other as they lie down on the railroad track. I miss you more than I can bear. But we had our time together, and now I have to let go. She nods weakly. Cobb holds Mal as her eyes close, dying. Fischer and his father's body drop away in the strong room. Ariadne drops inside the rocketing elevator. As it smashes into the top of the shaft, Ariadne smashes, and we're back in the van. The van crunches on impact with the water, crashing through the windows, flooding the interior. Fischer's eyes open, panicking. He unbuckles himself, pushes out of the broken window, and stops. He goes back to unbuckle Browning and drag him out. Fischer breaks the surface with Browning, who coughs and gasps. He starts pulling for the near bank, struggling through the rain-impacted water. Ariadne, Arthur, and Yusuf wait calmly underwater. They are sharing two regulators pulled from beneath the front seat. Arthur turns to Sato. There's blood in the water around Sato's belly. His eyes are lifeless. Arthur feels for a pulse and turns to Cobb, whose eyes are lifeless. Ariadne grabs Arthur's elbow, pulling him away. Fischer turns Browning/Eames over. They lie there, exhausted. I'm sorry, Robert. Fischer stares at the rain on the water. The will means that Dad wanted me to be my own man and not live for him. He turns to Browning. And I'm going to, Uncle Peter. Browning nods, wipes the rain from his face. In the puddle beside him, the reflection is not Browning, but Eames. Underneath a nearby bridge on the riverbank, breathing heavily, Arthur sits. What happened? Cobb stayed. With Ma? No, to find Sato. Arthur looks out at the water below the bridge. He'll be lost. No, he'll be all right. The waves toss a bearded man onto wet sand. As the Japanese security guard turns him onto his back, we realize that this is Cobb, but older and weary, traveled. Cobb wolfs down his food back in the dining room of the castle. The elderly Japanese man, Sato, except 90 years old, watches him. So, you have come to kill me? Cobb does not look up. I've been waiting for someone to come for me. Someone from your half-remembered dream? Sato peers at Cobb. Cobb? Not possible. He and I were young men together, and I am an old man. Filled with regret? Sato remembers and nods. Waiting to die alone. Yes. Cobb is staring at something on the table. I came back for you. I came to remind you of what you once knew. Cobb gestures at the table. Sato follows his gaze down the polished surface of the table. That this world is not real. The top is still spinning perfectly, as if it will never topple. Sato looks at the top and then back to Cobb. You came to convince me to honor our arrangement. Yes, and to take a leap of faith. As Sato-san listens to Cobb, he looks at the gun on the table between them. Come back, and we'll be young men together again. The elderly Sato looks at Cobb and nods. In the first-class cabin of the 747, Ariadne watches Cobb. His eyes are closed. Hot towel, sir? His eyes flicker open. He takes the towel with a nod. Ariadne smiles, relieved. We'll be landing in Los Angeles in about 20 minutes. Do you need immigration forms? Cobb nods and takes a landing card. He looks around the cabin. Sato is watching him, serious and haunted. Holding Cobb's gaze, Sato picks up the phone and dials. Cobb nods. Thanks. Cobb steps forward to the immigration official in LAX. He hands him his passport, nervous. The official takes a beat, looks Cobb up and down, and then, whoomp, the passport is stamped. As Cobb takes it back, he spots Ariadne at the next counter. She nods at him, and he nods back, then moves off. As Cobb passes through baggage claim, he exchanges subtle greetings with Eames and Yusuf. Arthur smiles broadly at Cobb. Cobb brushes past Fischer, who glances back at him, as if thinking maybe he should know him, and then moves on. As Cobb emerges into the crowded arrivals hall, he spots Professor Miles waving at him. Cobb and Mal's house. Cobb enters with Miles and drops his bags. He moves to the table and looks out at the overgrown garden. He reaches into his pocket, takes out his pewter spinning top, lowers it to the table, and spins it. A child's shout makes him look up. Through the window, James and Philippa have run into view, playing, their faces turned away. Cobb stares at the back of his children's head. Miles moves to the window and knocks on the glass. James and Philippa turn and see their dad. He steps to the window, watching their bright faces shining as they run towards him. Behind him on the table, the spinning top is still spinning, and we fade out. The end. Welcome back, and congratulations on making it to the very end of this movie reading for Inception from 2010. Please, if you have the time, leave a comment below letting me know that you made it till the end. And if you haven't already, leave a comment below with what you would like the next movie reading to be. I read each and every comment on this channel. I will see you in the next movie reading.